Meyer backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Tried to force the play, and it's intercepted. DJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Friday afternoon to wrap up this full week in the month of May, in the middle of May. Hope it's been a great week for you and hope you have a good weekend planned as well. Craig Smoak in the red, Paul Catalina in the red, white, and blue with the blue top on his jersey. Garrett Ross and Andrew Valade, Emery Winter are here running the mothership inside of what we do here at 365 Sports. Our guest today, Louisville. That's one of the teams that was brought up this week as a team that really could make a run. David Teal even brought them up. We'll have Alexis Cuban, who we've known since she was an intern for us. She'll join us today at 4. Mike Craven will join us from Dave Campbell's Texas Football and the Texas colleges. And then also today, Mickey Spagnola will join us at 4:45. We'll have the Minnesota football schedule as we continue through conferences, the Big Ten, and Paul Catalina's top 5. And Andrew Valade will throw out a couple of polls today, and we'll have the results at the end of the show. And, you know, we've said this before. This is the time of the year that the list, the top 5s, the top 10s, the top whatever, it's that time of the year. And we have one of those right off the top of the show today. ESPN with their top 10 college football, the head coaches list. Now, I'm not so sure. Now, you see 1 through 10, Matt Campbell and Kyle Whittingham from Utah and Iowa State there at 9 and 10. Kirby Smart at the top, and we'll have a note from him in a moment. Let's go 1 through 10. You see the names. Sarkisian at 5, Dan Lanning at 6, and then DeBoer, year 2 at Alabama. And now, Craig and Paul, your thoughts about the top 10.
I have a hard time taking anybody out. Like, I could reshuffle it all I wanted to, but you know, based on accomplishment, I think this is pretty well the right thing. You know, you've got, you know, the top 3 guys are the only guys coaching right now that have national titles actively. You know, so those have to be the top 3 guys going. And you know, I'm trying to think of outside of this. You know, guys I like who haven't been there that long, probably more like, you know, Chris Kleiman, I love, you know, Lance Leipold's done a great job at Kansas considering what he walked into. You know, Kenny Dillingham's only really, you know, been there a short time, so he doesn't have enough, but I see the arrow pointed up. But outside of that, there's nobody who's jumping out at me that's an egregious omission
Craig?
on this list.
Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin was somebody that was on the outskirts of this list based on just the other votes gathered, and I think he's a interesting name that you could debate that back end, and some people with a different angle might see him fitting inside because of the job that he's done over time. But I think it's a pretty solid damn list. I think the top is self-explanatory. I mean, 1, 2, 3, it's like Paul said, national championship head coaches, 4, 5, 6 guys who have been chasing and nipping at the heels of getting titles, and then some guys who are in that mix. But in the case of DeBoer with a lot to prove, Franklin has always fought and is continuing to fight against the narrative of not being able to accomplish that, but you can't negate all the wins and the big games and things that he's been a part of. So it's not like Penn State's not close. So I do think he deserves credit for that. And I think that's where you could probably start debating it a little bit. Like James Franklin, I don't think is just a surefire top 8 versus maybe the job that Kyle Whittingham's done. So again, I think it just depends on the kind of angle that you have. I did read in the article that apparently Dion got some votes, which I thought was
there was receiving votes and
pretty
Dion,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not a Dion hater, as you guys know. I think I've been on the side of whatever story we're talking about. It's not like pro or anti him. And sometimes I've thought, yeah, the retiring jerseys thing is stupid, but I also said, that's the school's fault more than anybody else's.
Absolutely.
I think that there are times where he gets a little bit out over his skis, but I do think he's done a bang-up job at Colorado. I know why people love to talk about him. I'm not, going to talk about him like most people do to get clicks, but I did find that I thought a little bit way too early to start putting him in top 10 conversation for coaches. Like, let's get to a conference championship game first. So that was just an interesting name that apparently got a couple votes. Beyond that, I don't know. I'd have to hear some names and then let them rattle around to have a conversation about them.
Here are some names that probably need to have a follow-up year. And if they do that, here are the 4 coaches outside of Campbell and Whittingham that are a part of the others receiving votes. You see that a lot of times in the top 25 AP or coaches poll. Leipold, Dillingham, Dion's on the list. He did get 3 votes, but a lot of people got 3 or more votes. And then Chris Kleiman. I think Dillingham, Signetti, and you could probably throw another name or 2 in here. Have to do Rhett Lashley, up and coming, very good young coaches who have done a hell of a job, but need to continue that on the upward type of, I guess you say, curve. But those are some names that I thought they're good. And what they've done is fantastic, but they probably need to have a validation right now as far as entering 25.
I think Kenny Dillingham already getting that level of respect and a handful of votes, which is more than Chris Kleiman, which is more than Rhett Lashley, which is more than just mentioned Dion, Kirk Ferentz. He's got more than them, more than Josh Heupel. Granted, it's like 2 people, but still, right. I think for him to already be getting that kind of love, not many people were talking about him last year, and then they went on that run and made a lot of noise, and you got to give credit because he's got more Big 12 titles than some other guys do, including some of the guys we've already mentioned. So he's a name that's really going to be fascinating to see how fast and how high his star rises if they are, in fact, just beginning there in Arizona State. And that wasn't just hey, they won the title and then they win another one 7 or 8 years from now. It's like, what if they win another one here pretty soon? And then what is he able to build? And then what kind of attention does that bring? So he's definitely one of those coaches that you have to keep your eye on here in the present and future. So interesting to see him already getting a little bit of respect. I think Signetti is somebody who I would have been interested to see where he was prior to last year on this list, but he still would have probably gotten some votes. Brian Kelly got a lot of votes. He was the first man out of this list, followed by Belichick, which I don't know that I'd have him anywhere in that because he hasn't coached a single college game. So I'm not giving him credit for Super Bowls when I haven't seen him, play a single game on a Saturday and who knows where in Clemson, South Carolina, for example.
I also haven't seen him win a lot of games without
Tom Brady.
Yeah. So, I'm not one who separates the coach and quarterback and says this one could have done it without that one, although Tom Brady went and did it. But there's a lot of factors like putting Bill Belichick in there. Yes, he's the greatest professional coach of all time. We know that. Like, the accomplishments cannot be argued with. He has more Super Bowls than any coach of all time. But it's different in college. Now, it's more similar now than it used to be, but he also only has a 3-year deal for a reason, for several reasons. And, I think that's premature to put him as a college coach because, we've seen it work both ways. Like, Pete Carroll and Jimmy Johnson are only the two ones who have broken through and had success at both levels, where they've won national titles in college, and Pete Carroll did it. He won national titles in college after not being successful in the NFL, then won Super Bowls. Jimmy Johnson won a national title, then won Super Bowls. And there's not a lot of guys who have success at both levels because it has been, at least until now, a very different kind of job.
Yeah, now it's basically they're coaching professional football. Mm-hmm. Here's a note about a couple of notes on after the top 10 was released, and then, of course, the others receiving votes. One said, I actually had to wipe my eyes and do a double take. Chris Kleiman with only one vote. He was at the bottom of the others along with Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz can take, you can question, no doubt, about how much challenge it was for them to get a first down and score points. But the son of a gun has won consistently year in and year out and was at points close to being a team that could win a Big Ten title.
The reason that Kirk Ferentz is not on this list is because he was stubborn in adapting. If he had just adapted a little bit, he'd definitely be on this list.
But they're also just boring and forgettable, and I don't mean that as a shot. I mean most people are putting together the list. They're not thinking of Iowa probably all that often, unless you're in that area, and then he comes to mind pretty quickly. But I think if you got some dude out on the West Coast or in the Deep South, and they're like combing through names, then they're probably more apt to give some credit elsewhere than they are to give to Kirk Ferentz. I think is probably part of it. At least that's where I could see that coming from. He wasn't completely shut out. He did get a vote, which was the same as Kleiman, but that was less than Dion, far less than Dillingham. Leipold got a lot of votes, and he's done a really good job at Kansas. So good to see him getting a level of respect. I think that's also obviously his pre-Kansas resume as much as anything else as well, but also what he's done there.
Wouldn't that also prop up Kleiman for his pre-K-State, and he's also won at K-State? I would think that those guys could flip where they are, with all due respect. We like Leipold and Kleiman, but that's a pretty big gap between the two of them when it comes to the votes. Here's another one, and we'll hear from Alexis Cubitt at 4. The guy who flies furthest beneath the radar is Louisville's Jeff Brom. He took Western Kentucky to 3 consecutive bowl games, took Purdue to a Big Ten title game, and has won 19 games in 2 years at Louisville. So Jeff Brom is just outside that top 10 as somebody that when they discussed the list on who all voted, that they were surprised that Brom was not inside the top 10.
You're reading off David Hale's explanation for why he had Brom in there, and I think that's a guy who does fly a bit under the radar. I think it's similar to like with the Iowa and Kirk Ferentz thing. I just think some of that's regional, and you don't necessarily just have those names pop in your head nationally as you do with a Lane Kiffin, for example, or obviously the Ryan Days and Dan Lannings and those types of names that you see all the time, whether it's television or it's one of the websites interviewing them or whatever the case may be. So, it's good to see there is some equal representation spread across the various conferences. It's not just a list that's hogged by the typical two. But I was, somewhat surprised, but not shocked to see Matt Campbell get the top 10 respect. I mean, I feel like he does get respect, but I wasn't completely sure that he'd get the nod over a Lane Kiffin, for example, or even a Cignetti being in Big Ten country with all the media they have up there. But, Campbell got that. I mean, he's still searching for that first championship, but he's been knocking on the door. Last year, their biggest year ever. Dillingham and company spoiled that to some degree, but they are knocking on the door, so he continues to get love. And at least for right now, it sounds like the coaching carousel stuff is kind of dissipated, and we're not like every single cycle going, oh, Matt Campbell's leaving Ames this year. It's sort of been long enough now where you're more along the lines of, I mean, he might leave one day, but he also could very well stay there because he's already been there damn near
he could be
decade already.
For them.
I think when Matt Campbell leaves, it's going to be one of those things where, well, he's turned down 20 jobs before, so we're not going to put him on this list. Then it's all of a sudden Matt Campbell is the new head coach here because he just did it. But I don't think he's the grass is greener guy. And he's also realized with the success he's had, like Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, they've had 2 coaches for the last 100 years. They're like the Steelers of college football. And he had to live up to Hayden Fry, and I think he's done that in his own way. So Matt Campbell has no one to live up to. It's his program. There's so much that like you give up when you say like, okay, well, I'm going to go take over for this legendary coach. And then they'll be like, man, he was great at Iowa State. That was really his program. Can you really make, if he got the job at, say, Florida or something, like, could he make Florida his program the way that the style he likes to run things? I don't know. But he can make Iowa State that way, and he can recruit and win that way. So I don't know why he would leave.
I think much like when Nico left Tennessee, and we know Tennessee started looking around, and rightfully so, there was a lot of talk about them coming trying to poach the Big 12 quarterbacks, and they should have. Like, that's what I would have done too. I would have gone and called Josh Hoover right away and said, hey, what is your interest level? I would have gone and called Sawyer Robertson and said, what's your interest level? And a handful of others potentially as well. And I think that plays into the fact that they stayed is great news for the league. But I do think that if you're looking for head coaches in the coming years, like, look no further than the Big 12. And I think we've seen a lot of guys have to turn down overtures or push it away and say, no, I'm staying here. Matt Campbell being one of those guys. But yeah, between he and Leipold and Kleiman as well, and then the shine of Dion that is attractive to a lot of people, and whatever he can end up doing post the familiarity of Shedeur and Travis Hunter, I think is a big mystery. But if he does well, then yeah, he's going to be right there on the tips of people's tongues eventually for a bigger job. And there's others that have done really well for themselves and could do a lot more, like a Joey McGuire, for example. So it's a league full of really good quarterbacks this year, and I think for now and for the last couple of years and moving forward, I mean, there will be changes, but it's a league with a lot of really good coaches in it too. And I think that's what you hear them say quite often. Shoot, Kalani Sitake is another guy. I mean, I could keep going and naming coaches, but it's a fun league, I think, when it comes to the head guys in charge. So there's definitely some good representation on here, and a lot more than maybe I would have expected, because it just feels like a lot of these lists get dominated by the same names in the same schools pretty frequently, and this is a nice departure from that.
The Big Lubbock list, again, the list that we have is from ESPN, different writers. The top 10 head football coaches right now in college football, and then there's a list of 8 to 12 others. Craig brought up Joey. He's early on in his career. Big Lubbock said Joey doesn't get enough credit for bringing Tech out of the 4-8, 5-7 desert, and has been to 3 consecutive bowl games. And that's a good note. Not a good note to be in the top 10, but a good note for what he has done there.
My question there, comparably, where the first 3 coaches on that list have been to national championship games, and the rest of the coaches on the list, except for, can you put it back up, Garrett, so I don't mess this up? So Matt Campbell, I think, is the only one on this list who has not been in the college football playoff.
Well,
or Whittingham hasn't.
But but we know what he did there until the last couple of years. Yeah,
the top 8 guys on the list.
DeBoer hasn't been to it.
What? DeBoer has been to it. Washington.
Oh, he was there.
Yeah. So DeBoer was in it
I'm glad
just 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Alabama thing. Well, you're right.
I'm intimately familiar with all the teams who made it in 2023.
As all of them deserved it too.
But yeah, so Kyle Whittingham and Matt Campbell haven't been to the CFP, the 4-team playoff. So there you go. And so like when you're trying to, put coaches with only a short time of head coaching experience on this list, remember, like the top 8 all have been to the playoff, and the last 2 have longevity at their spots more than anybody else. Like Kleiman, to me, would be the one that you would maybe take Campbell or Whittingham off, just because he's been at Kansas State for longer. Leipold hasn't been at Kansas really all that long.
Not longer than Whittingham.
Yeah, not Whittingham. So but if you want to take a guy who's not been in the playoff off this list, then you have to find somebody with the kind of longevity that those 2 guys have, and that's what most coaches actually don't have right now.
Yeah, I think Joey's a good coach. I think he's got a lot of upside, which is kind of what I was trying to speak to just in general. Looking ahead, he's somebody who could definitely find his way on there eventually, especially if they keep pouring money in and that money turns into wins. I mean, that's what we'll see this year. It's Big 12 championship or bust, I feel like, and I think that should be the bare minimum expectation when you've been touting your offseason as much as they have and when you poured as much into it as they have. I mean, that should be the expectation. So if they go and they accomplish that and you start stacking things like that on your resume, then I think you'll find him climbing up these ranks pretty quickly. But yeah, he's just a part of that group that I'm talking about with, I think, a fun league of coaches. And certainly Campbell deserves his respect because he's done more with less than most people. Whittingham's been, forget last year. I know there's like this whole thing about Utah, and it's kind of like somewhat an inside joke, or not even an inside joke. It's kind of like tongue in cheek sometimes. But then there's also, I feel like, this wave that's very serious about being anti-Utah. And I just think it's kind of gotten silly, to be perfectly honest with you. I think the AD was a moron last year. He was stupid, said stupid things, and he deserved the backlash that he got. But I also don't think that everybody has to be roses and sing Kumbaya and all of that. But just because last year sucked, Whittingham's a damn good coach.
Yeah.
And he may go prove that and shove it down people's throats this year. We'll see. But I think he's definitely deserving of mention here. Kleiman, Leipold. And is there anybody else? I mean, Dion, we'll see. Dillingham getting a lot of that, I think, just that fresh, new kind of vibe off him. So I just named half the league. And then there's a Joey. And then there's an Aranda who's won some things already. And there's others. So, yeah, it's a great league, and Joey will get his because, man, there's already a huge spotlight. The only thing missing now is go win something. That's what you got to do, and the rest will fall into place.
And that's why I was mentioning some of the guys that still have some validation to do. And you mentioned Aranda. He's been up and down like a roller coaster, but looks like he's turned it back around.
I don't think you can put Joey in there unless you got to talk about Sonny Dykes, who is in the playoff.
Yeah.
Right. No, he definitely doesn't deserve to be in there yet, but he's a guy, like I'm saying, that can get there.
Wet blanket, I'm not worried about disrespect here. Gundy has had more 10-plus win seasons than all of the Big 12 coaches except for maybe Whittingham. And I don't know exactly about the number of 10-plus wins for either one of them, but they have been in that atmosphere a few times. A couple of Jeff Monken, huh?
Yeah, Gundy, I think, is suffering from last year. Yeah. I mean, that's all that is. People have just forgotten about them. And you're right. I mean, as soon as you said that name, it just like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, of course, Gundy should be mentioned there. I just don't have a list of the coaches in front of me, or I probably would have highlighted him. I know I would have highlighted him because he would have deserved it. But, yeah, Gundy's a bit of an afterthought because last year was just so miserable in every way. But he certainly deserves a vote or two on this list above Dion. I mean, above the rest of them I think are kind of self-explanatory, and I'm not trying to be anti-prime here. Like I said, I don't know. I feel like Mike Gundy's been in the game for a long time, and that's not controversial to say that he should have a vote or two more. But yeah, that's just more of a testament that forgetting a guy like Mike Gundy of how deep the league is with pretty good head coaches.
Let's see. Kim Coulter, did you know 25% of Whittingham's seasons have been losing seasons? Well, one, he's been the head coach at Utah for, I think 20 years or so. He's had.
So that would mean
his first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. He was 8-5 or better, 7-5 1 year, was 5-7, 5-7. Then went on another run. I only see, unless I'm missing something, I'm looking at his entire record. He was, I've only seen 2 losing seasons in his career at Utah in 2012 and 2013.
I don't know what you're looking at. He has at least, he's got 3 5-7 seasons. He's got a 3-2 season back during COVID. So that, I mean, what is that even? And then 2004, he only coached a game because Urban Meyer was the coach. So really, he's got
which other 3? I have just I'm curious. 12 and 13, they were 5-7. When else were they were 5-7?
Last year,
that was 23. They did okay. I'm sorry, it was separated from all the other years. So
yeah, he's also got a 13-win season, an 11-win season, 5 10-win seasons, 4 9-win seasons, 3 8-win seasons. So
yeah, he could have another one. He's
been
still
in
very
3
good.
conferences.
All right, so there we are with that. Pretty good discussion. Garrett, any thoughts about you in that top 10? Your thoughts about anybody that might be missing or anyone that may be a little overmodulated?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty spot on with the coaches. And Brian Kelly being outside the top 10 makes all the sense in the world to me. But no, I wouldn't add anybody in there. I think you could shuffle it a little bit, but no, it's pretty spot on.
You are such a hater.
I am.
How many of the coaches in the top 10, and DeBoer's done it, and a couple of others have done it, would, if they were coaching non-alphas, where would they be on that list? How many? And again, that's part of the Kirby Smart, long-time defensive coordinator for Saban. But how many of those guys in the top 10 would you say maybe they're in that? The reason they're there, but would be perhaps not quite as involved in this list if they were coaching, for example, some of the autonomy for, but not blue bloods.
Well, I don't think any of them would be off this list. I think they're all damn good coaches. I don't think any of them are just like coasting off of NIL money or just having 5 stars handed to them. I mean, yeah, Kirby Smart's more high profile because he's at Georgia than if he was at, let's say, SMU or something like that. But I still think, like Rhett Lashley, he'd find a way to make the damn playoff, and he'd have good players, and they'd be heavy in the transfer portal. I think if you can coach, you can coach. Now, you may not win as big in some places because of resources or support, but I think all the guys on this list have proven that they got to their job for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like they earned their way to those big jobs. They weren't just handed those jobs.
I will give you an example. The coach number 3, and brace yourself, here comes a compliment. Was Clemson?
Well, he deserves them.
Yeah, I know. But for me, but from when Dabo took over Clemson, were they a true blue blood?
No.
In fact, I think when he took over, they lost a bowl game to what was an average, a little bit above average
they weren't
Nebraska
even
team.
A hint of they weren't even in the conversation.
So, Dabo Swinney took over a team that wasn't a blue blood and made them a blue blood. So, that happened to be Clemson, but it could have just as well been anybody else.
Yep, absolutely. I remember when he took over, he was an interim, and I don't remember the circumstances or whatever, but yeah, he won 2 national titles.
They fired Tommy Bowden.
Yeah, that's right. He has absolutely raised their level, because before that they had Danny Ford and they had some other pretty good maybe players and coaches, but he has made them where if they don't play for a title or they're not in that mix, then it's a disappointing year.
I do think mentioning Gundy, I'm glad that he got brought up, and then Whittingham there as well. I mean, having the year that was as bad as last year, you can't really afford to. We know how strenuous that was, and the talk at the end of the year. I do think big year for those two to turn their ships around, and you expect them to, but there's also a lot of reasons to believe that it may not be a 1-year fix, or it may be similar to last year in some cases, but those two guys have been around a really long time. They know what they're doing, and that was just kind of out of nowhere in some ways and uncharacteristic for both programs a year ago. So I'm definitely on my list of like 100 things that I'm curious about this offseason. I'm curious about how those 2 old grizzled vets try and get things together in this era that they didn't cut their teeth in. I mean, they cut it in the old ways of college football. I'm not saying they can't adjust or they haven't adjusted to some degree, but will they be able to, after last year, right the ship in an extreme way? I think obviously Oklahoma State and Utah fans are asking the same thing, but that's definitely one of those underlying storylines outside of just the championship chase and things like that is one of interest in the Big 12.
Those who thought maybe names that have been overmodulated, James Franklin's like 101-42 at Penn State and won 19 games or so at Vanderbilt. The other one is Dan Lanning.
He's also in a conference with Ohio State and Michigan, and so those guys have kind of taken a lot of the spotlight. But I do understand the James Franklin sentiment of, does he really belong with all of those other guys? Is he top 7 or whatever he is on that list? I can see where there's a conversation to be had there. I do think he's a good coach, but he does have the big ones that are missing from his resume, so top 8.
A lot of people with more and more, once Gundy's name was brought up, they mentioned Gundy.
If you take away and I know it's like, if you take away everything and you just compare, if you take away the playoff contenders or the people that have won the playoff, I mean, he's in that next mix of the playoff contenders. So he was just there last year. They won a playoff game. They beat SMU. So I definitely vibe with the James Franklin questions, but I think that given kind of the way this is stacked up, you can see where he does fit in that spot. I think ultimately, I think there's a case that you can make, but there's also, like I said, a case you can make where maybe he's a little bit high.
Kim Coulter talked about Whittingham and some of the losing seasons. They never just had one of those disastrous years. Last year might be considered. In fact, I was on the phone today with a Utah administrator, and they trying to get Mark Harlan on the show, and we will hopefully between now and Big 12 Media Days in July. And he was saying that, man, the school just reacted the way they did when they had so many like the expectations in the first year of the Big 12, and believe me, the fan base had that too, maybe more so. And when they were 4-0 and everything was great, and then they just melted down. He said that they are just like, it was a bad football season across the board, and everybody kind of almost went into a funk and kind of a mode of just like cover yourself, right? But that, and you all both mentioned, it'll be interesting to see how Utah bounces back this year.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't have a good year, then he's not on that list next year, in my opinion.
No, absolutely not.
He would need to get bumped for somebody, because then the tide's starting to turn a little bit, and maybe that makes room for a Gundy and a bounce back season, and he gets that respect. He should at least probably have gotten a vote or two, but I think it's what happened last year playing into a lot of things. And I promise you, Utah fans, I am not going to have to bring up BYU every time your name gets mentioned. I don't think that you two have to be connected at the hip, but that was definitely why last year was even worse, was the fact that they were going off and having so much success. I mean, it was a double whammy of epic proportions that were working against them and making it a miserable ass year. So you would think there's only up to go as far as 2025 goes.
Mark Harlan learned a lesson that a lot of coaches have to learn. Don't do a press conference when you're in a blind rage.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I mean, that added on to it as well.
Exactly.
Like,
So,
there was just a whole bunch of things.
That was the thing. Like, so when you go out there and you say those things, and then I'm sure Sunday morning he got up and, Brett Yormark had a little text there waiting for him, and he's like, I got to go back and,
if not a call that night,
like, hey, calm down, calm down.
Yeah. So one of the other names that we have not brought up, has not been mentioned, is not on the list. How far has he fallen in Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, he would have been for sure top 10 as the Oklahoma head coach. He'd probably be top 5. And we'll get to revisit that years down the line. I know people are revisiting it already, just 2, 3, 4 years into all of those changes. But man, I said that I understood why he left. I mean, I ultimately did, because the conferences were shifting and maybe he was scared of the SEC. I mean, I don't think the Big Ten adding Oregon and Washington is like some lightweight either. So it's not like he was completely running, but I definitely could see where that narrative was in play and maybe did play an actual factor in his decision-making. And look, most of all, I can understand wanting to go live in a really nice big house in sunny Southern California, for as much as there might be more unique problems to deal with there that are different from the problems you deal with in Oklahoma. Like, it's a lovely place to live, and a pretty cool school with a lot of history behind it. And so I could understand parts of why he made that decision. But yeah, in light of what it's done to him perception-wise, I wonder how much he does perhaps regret it. Or is the view every day when he goes and walks and has his cup of coffee on the back porch, is that enough to say, like, nope, I made the right decision. I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean every morning. But career-wise, career-wise, he's definitely taken a massive dip, because, he would have been on the top 5 of that list almost assuredly pre-USC move. I mean, they were rolling at Oklahoma. The only thing they weren't doing was winning the Natty.
Finishing.
That was the only thing.
Which,
they were winning.
Again, how many do? Yeah.
Very few. And at that time, basically only Alabama was doing that for the most part.
All right, so appreciate your feedback on that. And good little list. Appreciate the list. ESPN popped that out there. And
did he even get a vote?
No.
Riley wasn't even in the getting votes, so that's wild.
I will do this because you guys brought it up. Those who were not a part of the top 10, and do this quickly. Not quick. It doesn't have to be. Brian Kelly, this is in order. Belichick, we've discussed both of them. Kirk Cignetti, Lance Leipold, Jeff Monken, Army is a dude. Jeff Brom at Louisville, Dillingham, Lane Kiffin. Craig, you brought him up early. Dion, Josh Heupel, Rhett Lashley, Chris Kleiman, Kirk Ferentz. Not even one vote for Lincoln Riley.
And if you had not brought him up, I wouldn't have ever thought about mentioning him. That's how just off the radar he is.
That's our good friend Roger the Dodgers, big old USC fan.
It's only been 2 years since they were relevant, too, but it's been 2 really chaotic years.
Seems like it was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. I mean, and the reason they were relevant is the guy who's playing for the Bears right now was keeping him that way, because it took him until that last year of Caleb Williams where Caleb couldn't win games by himself anymore. And the defense was so bad to go like, hey, maybe we should get in somebody's way.
Yeah. By the way, Alan Tran, Danny Ford won that first Clemson natty. Yep, they beat Nebraska in an Orange Bowl, and I mentioned Danny Ford that was their big year. They've had other good coaches. They had great coaches, but Dabo's taken them to a level year in and year out.
But I would say that, like, to be a blue blood, you've had to have won multiple national titles. Like Georgia Tech has one, Minnesota has two, for God's sakes. But they're not blue bloods. What Dabo has done is now they've got 3 total in their history. They're a blue blood now because of him. Let's
break here. We'll come back with a couple of notes. A quote from Kirby Smart that is old school, but I don't know. We'll discuss on what he said and your reaction to that too. Coming up at 4, she covers Louisville. Alexis Cubitt will join us at 4. Mike Craven, and then also Mickey, 3 consecutive guests in the 4 o'clock hour. This is, and we appreciate your time. Please click the like and subscribe buttons if you can. 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It starts to creep into you start to creak as your body aches and pains and bones, but starts to kind of creep into your system, and you get into your early to upper 40s. And then all of a sudden things aren't the same. Your energy's not the same. You don't feel the same. Your sex drive drops, or you don't have one. Then that's a little bit weird. And it could be because your testosterone level has dropped. It happens. As I mentioned, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of it. So what can you do to see if that's what the issue is? Contact Dr. Kent Petty and his staff at pettycliniclowt.com. Tell them I sent you. They will set you up to get blood work. They'll take care of that. You go and give your blood. He gets the results. And once he has them, look at your testosterone level. And if it's too low, he can put you in a program to help you increase your testosterone level and become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
With Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a new Chrysler Dodge Jeep or Ram with smoking hot deals that slay the competition. Only at Allen Samuels. You're going to love it here.
Come by. Let's be friends. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Big savings, legendary Jeeps at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Kirby Smart on NIL. We've heard him discuss this a little bit. At times, it's us against the world or whatever. He did that against TCU too. I just think a freshman. I just don't think a freshman should make more than a senior, and I want other sports to survive. We're likely a year or two from schools cutting programs. If you're an incoming freshman and you're a stud and you're a backup right tackle as a senior, that's the first example. I get what he's trying to say here, and then the other sports, we'll get to that too because that's huge. But I don't think that's possible to say that a freshman cannot make as much as a senior.
Well, no, it's not possible. It's not legal to say that, but that's if how he wants to run his program, that's what he would prefer. I think he's speaking about what he would prefer as opposed to what's actually going on. And so, yeah, I don't think he wants to deal with the mess of a young guy rolling in, making $3-4 million, and your senior who's been there every spring for the last 4 years and has been all SEC or whatever. Like, that dude's still going to get his money, but is he making as much as like the 5-star quarterback that's the chosen one? Like Nico Iamaleava was clearly making a lot more money rolling into Tennessee than probably a lot of the guys who had already been all SEC or all whatever, maybe even all American in some cases. So, yeah, I don't think any coach wants that because it can create locker room problems. So I think you got to keep in mind when somebody like Kirby Smart's talking about this, he's talking about it from the point of view of a head coach. Not necessarily the point of view of what's best for the player or that player's family or past players, etc. So, yeah, I think that's the belief to have the best kept together locker room. But how realistic is it in this day and age? I guess in Athens, they can make it as realistic as they want it to be. But in other places, clearly that's not always the case.
I mean, I would need to talk to an AD off the record to find out. Because here's the thing. He says he doesn't want other sports to he wants other sports to survive.
Well, let's look at the second part of this.
That's the second part.
Well,
let's okay, you want to say the freshman or senior thing? You want to solve that? Get behind collective bargaining, you loudmouth jackass. So don't give me that.
There goes the Georgia fans we had.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make a rule. Like,
is that Kirby Smart's decision?
Are you going to support it? Or are you going to sit here and try to go back? So my question to him is, if he truly wants this, support collective bargaining.
How do you know he doesn't?
Well, I don't know. He's never said it, but come out and say, like, I don't know about this. And like, don't talk in platitudes. Talk in, I support collective bargaining as a coach.
No, I don't know if he's ever said it. Probably. I don't know if he's been asked it. I get your point, but he's not going to make that decision. But him saying something can help.
He's got to Everybody asked him his opinion on it. If he and other coaches get behind it, it will help.
I googled Kirby Smart CBA, and I mean, this is AI. AI is not always accurate. Please understand that, especially on Google. Google searches, it's wrong all the time. Garrett,
I was going to say, if you put minus AI when you Google, it'll take away the AI.
Oh, will it? Okay, yes, I didn't know that because it pops up and it's not what I wanted to pop. But the first headline that pops up if you Google Kirby Smart CBA, Georgia makes Kirby Smart college football's first $13 million man. Kirby Smart contract details on record $130 million deal.
Right.
So it does.
People have brought that up for sure.
Yeah, it does kind of ring hollow when he's also making gobs of money.
So
I don't think he should make as much as a guy who's older than him and coaching has been coaching longer.
Wow.
How's that?
That's
Is that
the same thing. Yeah. So like he should make as much as Kyle Whittingham. Or Kyle Whittingham should be making more. Like based on his, I mean, granted, they're not the same thing, but that's his logic. And what I will say to the other part is, I don't know what the operating budget for, say, a tennis team is for a year.
Well, yeah, let's talk about this. That's a separate part.
So if you don't want to lose other programs, are you going to voluntarily, like, just say the operating budget is $3 million for the men's and women's tennis team at Georgia? I don't know what it would be, but it's $3 million. Are you going to say, like, I'll give up $3 million to save tennis? Are you going to do that, Kirby?
No, either he or will he give up $3 to $5 million from his football
from
program.
his staff?
Yeah.
Like, will you give up that money from the football program? Well, $13 million of it goes straight to him. So he's, maybe not the largest part of the operating budget, but he and the staff, are more than half of it. So,
I mean, it does feel kind of like a politician who's complaining about the poor people and their taxes and all that. And meanwhile, you find out they're making like hundreds of millions off of, their dealings and all of that. I mean, it's kind of, it has a political sort of feel to it of like, yeah, you're saying what the people want to hear. And then meanwhile, you're rich as all get out. So I can see where people kind of get twisted on him in particular, or a Nick Saban or someone along those lines trying to advocate and shake the trees of like, oh, the sport's dying. There's not enough money to go around. It's like, well, you got a whole money tree that you're shaking right there. But as far as the schools cutting programs, I do think that this has been kind of the boogeyman that's been said for multiple years now. And I know that there's been some schools that have had to make cuts, but they are very small schools, and we've never talked about them unless we were talking about the fact that they were not cutting sports.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I can't even remember the names. I know there's like 2 examples we've had over the last year. We're like, did you know that Dubuque State's cutting their women's tennis? And we're like, oh my God, they're cutting the whole sport's dying because NIL. It's like, did you even know that school existed?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sucks. It sucks there's less opportunities, but I do think that whole cutting programs thing is something that the coaches go to every time they want to do like the boogeyman thing of, well, look at what's happening. These sports are going to die. And maybe that is eventually what's going to happen. And I do think that's something that the leaders have to keep in mind. And I do think that's something to be concerned about. But yeah, it probably gets lost, the messaging, when it's coming from someone like him, who is not in any danger whatsoever, but is clamoring about the danger.
I have to follow up with your tennis thing.
Yeah.
You want to know this? You
Yeah,
want facts? Okay, this is good. You said about $3 million, right?
Yeah.
Men's tennis at Georgia, net loss of $1.3 million, 10 team members. They brought in $95,000 in revenue. All right. But net loss of $1.3 million. Women brought in $80,000 in revenue, but a net loss of nearly $5 million, so about $3 million.
So about $3 million of operating costs.
I just had to look that up.
So, all right. I mean, like, I just gave him a $3 million pay cut, and he's still making $10 million. So I'm sorry about the expansion to his ski chalet, but like, that's the thing. It reminds me of Joe Manchin, who was a senator from West Virginia, like on the back of his yacht doing a press conference, being like, hey, we got to help the little guy. And you're like,
yeah, there is that feel to it, but I would also say like he earned that money.
He did.
So it's not his job to save softball.
No, and it's absolutely
because you make money, does that mean you shouldn't complain about others who aren't, or how to fix the game?
Well, if you here's the thing: if you are, and he's earned that money, that's true. But if you are wanting to help the problem and excluding yourself from part of the budget, that's where the problem is. Like, if he's like, they have to do everything else but come to me, like, if you are saying that everybody needs to make sacrifices, athletes are going to have to make sacrifices when freshmen don't get much as seniors. See, that's where the rich guy, you have to make sacrifices thing hits a wall. Is, okay, so you're asking me, who makes less money than you, to make a sacrifice. Okay, but you're not going to do it?
But the sport he coaches, it brings in all of the revenue to pay for the ones who don't.
Okay, and I'm just talking about his own football team with his logic there.
Well, that's what I just mentioned.
So, yeah, but like his own football team, like when he's talking about that, or his whole athletic department, yes, but when you start telling people to sacrifice and you start at the bottom, that to me is where it's – and then you say, like, he doesn't want to lose these other sports, and he does bring in all the money. Like, he's running in, like, he's kind of colliding in a situation where he's part of the reason that, like, there's so much money spent on football.
Well, he's part of the reason they have the money to spend.
Too.
He's the biggest reason. But if he was really that concerned to, like, because we don't need to go on and on about this. If he really is that concerned, he could go give some of his money, but he shouldn't have to do that. And if that's the only solution, then maybe it's not meant to survive if you have to suddenly start doing things like that. But it is one of those where we will see if sports start getting cut. I mean, beyond a level of D3 table tennis or something like that, not trying to be disrespectful. It's just that we've not seen that sort of seismic happening the way that it's sort of been put out there like this. And so maybe we are closer to that. And then when that hammer finally drops, then we'll all go, oh crap. Everybody who said that was right. But I think everybody's hoping we don't quite get to that point.
Let's get to that point before we sound the alarm.
Yeah.
And then go, oh, this is bad. Like, yeah, there are solutions to all this, and collective bargaining can help save all the sports. So you need to advocate for the thing that's going to help you the most.
Who loses with collective bargaining?
Here's the thing about it. Everybody kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point, is that everybody wins and everybody loses.
Yep.
We are in a tug of war right now, and this doesn't need to be tug of war, because tug of war, it never comes to it. Like, in a tug of war, like you've played tug of war before, in the middle, nobody goes like, hey guys, we've been pulling for a long time. Let's just stop. That's not really what happens. One team falls over and wins, and the other one, falls backwards and wins, and the other one falls forward and loses.
One just collapses.
So exactly.
Dies, yeah.
So instead of tug of war, which only one side can win, you do collective bargaining, which is a win-win for everybody. And it's a lose-lose for everybody at the same time, because you have to make sacrifices.
Other things come into play.
But when you start at the top, let me just finish my point, and telling people that they have to make sacrifices, and you are asking the people at the bottom to make sacrifices first, that's hard for them to accept and do.
I don't know if they're using the freshmen as saying that they're at the bottom. I think that what they're saying is that if you've been in the sport as a senior for 4 years, what he's saying that they should not make less than freshmen. I completely 100% disagree. It's a supply and demand, just like it is as you as a football coach.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith deserves as a freshman to make more money than a lot of seniors. Yep. I don't care how long they've been playing at Ohio State.
Yep, I agree. All right, so Ross Dellinger, I didn't know if you guys had mentioned this on Wednesday. This is an interesting note. In a meeting with Deloitte officials, which has been the big, storyline this week on whatever eventually happens with the House settlement, ACC spring meetings, they shared with ADs and coaches that 70% of the past deals from booster collectives would have been denied. 90% of deals from public companies would have been approved. So, again, this is me. The 90% would be what? Pepsi, Whataburger, car dealerships, whatever else. The 70% of past deals from booster collectives would have been what? Mainly donors and what?
So the way that I looked at this was I saw Darren Heitner, who I know you've talked to. He's always pro-athlete, no matter what. I don't feel like I've ever seen him not take the athlete side in any of these stories. Is there an example?
I think Nico Iamaleava was one.
But you kind of have to in that case because he
but that was the only one I've seen. Yeah.
Screwing up the whole system. But he's pretty much 99.9% pro-athlete, and his immediate reaction was like, well, they're trying to take away the NIL deals and this and that, and like, I'm pro-athlete as well, but it's not like they just get carte blanche on everything. I think the way that I read this, and I am not legal eagle, my brain turns to mush when we talk about these topics for too long, but I think that they wouldn't be approved because they weren't on the up and up. Like, they were the deals that weren't like Pepsi going, here is $1 million to Caitlin Clark. And here's why. They were more like, here's the Lambo dealership in Austin who's kind of like behind the scene. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of thing. That's how I read it, at least, was like, yeah, they would have been denied because they're not true NIL. That's how I read it, at least. And maybe I'm wrong on that.
But there is a very simple way to solve that issue legally. And here's the other thing that they're going to run into, because they will get sued over that part of it if 70% of the deals are going to be denied. As long as I am a reputable business owner who pays taxes in America, and say Emery Winter is my star point guard recruit, and
that dude never be a star. He's a bum.
But he's my star point guard recruit, and I decide that, you know what, at Paul Catalina Lamborghini, we are going to give Emery a car, and we're going to pay him $500,000 to be our spokesman for a day. That's all I have to do.
Like, that is the way it is now. No question.
You can't tell me that I can't now. All you're asking these businesses that would not get cleared to do is make them do something for that money, which is really not hard, because If you just show up and say, like, I need 3 Instagram posts, a TikTok dance, and you in this Lamborghini at the place signing autographs for an hour, here's your money. I would think that of that 70%, about 95% of them would get fulfilled in 6 seconds. Yeah. And then you'd have the, lazy ne'er-do-well athletes who, walk out on contracts and do those things.
And Mitt Winter had a couple of things last night and also tonight about Tennessee has passed a very NIL-friendly law for the athletes in Tennessee. So that's another thing that they're battling. You were going to say something else, Craig?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's more to it than they just aren't more deals that are on the up and up and more of kind of still the trying to do things the older way and get around the parameters that were put in place. And as the story that you just mentioned is kind of falling in line with that line of thought, the thing that holds back college sports and trying to progress and do a lot of things is, I think, what Cody Campbell and Nick Saban and that committee is. At least it's a topic that's been brought up or Campbell's brought up in the past. And it's the fact that as all of the problems continue to mount, one of the biggest ones is that everybody is still selfish. Everybody is still doing what they have to do for themselves. And that includes the states. And so what happened with all the Southeastern states, all those SEC schools, when everybody started doing all these NIL changes were being, everybody started trying to buffer or change their state laws to help who? Their in-state schools, which, hey, that's what you would want them to do as constituents. But what did it do? It created different laws everywhere, and some have them and some don't, and so some can do this and some don't. And that's why one of the biggest issues that has to get fixed is everybody's got to be under the same damn law. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one of the biggest problems. That would clean up a lot of this. Well, so I know that's more of the Tennessee story.
Yeah. Well, let me what Mitt Winter said about Tennessee.
Yeah.
Thought I'd give this a repost since it's significant. In a nutshell, Tennessee schools and athletes won't have to adhere to the House settlement limits and restrictions on paying, receiving NIL compensation under the terms of this new law. Tennessee now has the most athlete-friendly NIL law, appears to prohibit all of the House settlements limits on NIL comp, which is salary cap, the 20, whatever you want to say, collective restrictions, unless they're a part of a federal law, valid court order, or determined to be exempt from antitrust law.
God, we've got to get all the lawyer stuff out of this freaking game, man, for one. Like, it's just been so, I mean, I don't know if it ever will, though, because of where we are now, where this is going to be like the constant battle. But yeah, hey, everybody should all agree and everything would be easier. Josh Heupel probably feels that way. But guess who's not trying to do that? The state that he works in. They're still trying to get their advantages and have a better advantage in NIL capabilities than the state of Alabama does or the state of Georgia does, right? And so that's why in the future, whatever changes do occur, collective bargaining, like one of the things that has to be hammered out, and I know is at least on the Cody Campbell list of ideas, is everybody's got to be on the same page, state by state, or else this is just going to continue to be the case where, just like in college sports of years past, it wasn't the states, it's the school themselves. They're all going to cheat. They're all going to try to find advantages where they can to win. And so that's no different than state laws and trying to massage those to best help your school win more football games. And so until you can get everybody where they're playing by the same book of rules, then everybody's going to continue to tweak here and there, and it's just going to continue to be sort of messy. So, yeah, I mean, state of Tennessee is doing what's best for itself, I suppose, but those state laws being different depending on where you are is certainly part of the messier side of this whole thing.
All right, coming up, Alexis Cubitt, she covers Louisville. Jeff Brom, we mentioned him earlier. Yesterday, David Teal was discussing how the teams who are at that top echelon of the ACC, who would they include? And Jeff Brom in Louisville, saw the note that he's won 19 games his first 2 years with them. She's next. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35. We were there Wednesday night honoring 20 amazing student athletes, and my goodness, did they put some great food together. The way that the customer service was. Bria was the host for us for that, and we do appreciate both her, and also the staff that was there serving us, setting things up. It was a beautiful view, beautiful setup. And we had a great time. If you have a banquet, obviously there's graduations that are already set, but if you have anything of a special event and you're looking for a place to host it, the Baylor Club has several locations, including Dr. Livingstone has a presidential suite that's in the southwest corner of the stadium. We've hosted the banquet there before when there were some renovations going on, and it was cozy but beautiful. The Baylor Club with memberships available through Club Core that also includes golf rounds elsewhere around the country if you become a member of the Baylor Club, and that's coming up. More and more memberships available. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Craig Smoak, 365 Sports. There she is, Miss Louisville. Alexis Cubitt with us. We've known her since she was, well, when, Paul?
She was a sophomore at Baylor, right?
Sophomore at Baylor.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've got to bring this up, and she's going to be completely embarrassed by this. So I asked her if she could join us, and she picked 4 o'clock. And then I said, hey, we'd like to be able to do a video link too. So can you give me your email address? And what was your answer to me on the video link?
I was like, do I have to be on camera? Today was a rough day.
Hey, Alexis, there are no rough days.
Hey, you look
light
comfortable.
up this screen.
Look at that smile.
And here's the thing. Every time that we get to see you, we hearken back to the days of yesteryear.
Yep.
When Smokey almost killed us all in a car.
I didn't even get close to killing us in the car. It was what was more rough or rougher? Is that what? Yeah.
Right.
What today for you, or that car ride back from a Midway playoff game?
I'm not gonna lie, Smokey, I love you, but that car ride is undefeated. That was, a lot.
I thought it was a smooth drive, and I think they'd won too. That was even better. All right, let's get to Louisville, Jeff Brom, et cetera. We were just talking about a list that ESPN had out on top 10 coaches, and Brom was just below the cut, but in that mix, he's done really nice in 2 years at Louisville. Where is the Louisville fan base? He's obviously a local star, legend. What is the feeling about him so far after a couple of years?
Yeah, I think the first year it was a lot of like everything was the first and new, so it was super exciting. So I think it's kind of settled a little bit in year two, but there's still a lot of allegiance to him and a lot of loyal supporters. Last year, obviously, he didn't win as many games as the year before, but in my opinion, still had a really good year because the schedule was a lot stronger. So I think you still have a lot of optimism, especially after Tyler Shuck did what he did, Isaac Brown and Duke Watson coming back, that 1-2 running back punch. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the defense was the biggest thing everybody was kind of not too happy with, and for good reason. But overall, I think everybody's still pretty excited about just having Jeff here and what he's been able to do those first 2 years.
Is this, I mean, the ACC's got Clemson at the top right now. Miami appears that they have at least done enough to they should at least be 9-4 or 10-3 again, right? Like I don't see them falling much more than that. But after that, it's pretty wide open. I mean, like there are teams with high hopes, but they had some things last year that if they were just a little bit better, probably go a different way. Do they feel this is the time where they can make a move?
I think so. Because even when you look back at those losses, Notre Dame was, I think, a one-possession loss, Miami, one possession. Like all of their losses were, well, not all of them, but most of them, in my opinion, were winnable. Stanford was a very weird, like Jeff Brom has those like really weird, like where did this come from losses? And Stanford was one of those. But I mean, for the most part, even like SMU, losing at home, they're right in that game. So I think this is a really good opportunity for them to really take that next step. Like I said, you kind of expect the offense to do well. You just aren't really sure about the defense just because of how much they lost. But you just kind of hope that maybe now is that time for them to really, move up because all eyes are on them at this point. And so I think now is the best time as any to strike. So.
Alexis, with that offense, what have been the early returns, just kind of the scuttlebutt about Miller Moss and how they feel about him, what he can do, et cetera?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Miller is having the right, group around him. He looked pretty good. He's a little smaller, I'm not going to lie, than I remember from the Holiday Bowl. But then again, he threw 6 touchdowns against Louisville, so I was just kind of watching the ball. But as far as just him, yeah, a little smaller than maybe like Tyler or even Jack that first year. But I think the biggest thing is just to have playmakers around him, which they do. And getting Dakari Collins from the portal after the spring was huge. But I think, when you look at, like I mentioned, Jack and Tyler, they had their best seasons, their final season with Brom. So I think he does a really good job of getting these guys who maybe aren't the biggest names, but just being that quarterback whisperer. So I don't know. I think it would be unfair to expect Miller to be Tyler, but I would still expect him to have, another 2,000, 3,000 yard passing season this year.
Tyler Shuck had success, but it was always kind of hit and miss. And of course, we know about at times having the bumps and bruises. Mm-hmm. To get drafted when he did, to me, Jeff Brom has that quarterback whisperer reputation, but I would think that one there is a gold star for him, that he helped that guy who was just kind of wandering become an NFL draft pick on day 2.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun story to watch unfold, and even just to learn about after the season was over. I talked to Tyler's quarterback trainer who's up there in Dallas. His name's Landry, and he talked about how, that last year at Texas Tech, a lot of scouts and people were telling him, hey, go pro and just be an undrafted free agent. And that wasn't obviously good enough for them. And so they wanted that 1 year to prove, that he can stay healthy, that he is, because he was obviously one of the top quarterbacks as a high school prospect, and so just to kind of basically prove that to himself, he found a really, really good situation. And that's the thing about Jeff. He's really good at finding maybe that hidden gem, which obviously he did with Tyler, but the biggest thing for Tyler was he didn't have to run as much. If you look at, what he did at Texas Tech, just a little more, little more scrambling, a little more mobile, but with guys like, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, at the time, Maurice Turner, Don Chaney, Tyler didn't have to run as much, which kept him a lot more healthy and able to show what he could do with his arm. And so, yeah, it kind of went from, no conversation, in August to after the season, it's like, okay, this is a guy that's going to be drafted. And then, you see what he did at the Senior Bowl, and then the combine came in. It's just like he just kept improving and really raised his draft stock to the point where, at one point we thought maybe he could go end of the first round. So that was a really interesting story. But like I said, Jeff does a really good job of kind of finding those hidden gems, and even, with the running backs, just kind of finding that hidden talent and really allowing it to shine.
Alexis, when do you think that he will get off of the 1-year transfer quarterback hitch?
That's the funny thing is I don't know. So Jack came in, he was a 6-year guy. Tyler came in, he was a 7th-year guy. And I'm like, okay, do I hear 8? Do I hear 5? Like how we keep this going? But no, you would hope that at some point there is some stability. I know they've got a few guys that are back. Obviously lost Pierce Clarkson, who was one of their, prize guys that they retained when the coaching change happened. But you guys are familiar with Deuce Adams there in Central Texas. He looks pretty decent as far as just kind of coming along, but it's hard to say right now whether or not he might not go back to the portal next year, because there's still some times where you're kind of looking at the backups like, are they really ready to take over? And just with the way that, the years have gone, they really haven't needed backups, or they've been in games where they needed their starters the whole time. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on, how quickly some of these guys on staff or on the roster mature, what they kind of see from them this year. But I would probably put my money on another portal quarterback next year. I'm not going to lie.
Alexis, I know this is a more big picture question, but did you come across much discussion or much, reaction to the ACC and ultimately deciding kind of what their future looks like, and a bit of a tilted table towards the Blue Bloods? So that doesn't favor Louisville at all, but was there much talk about that in the area? And if so, kind of what was that talk?
Not a whole lot of talk. I think the main thing for Louisville right now is just to continue building their brand. I don't think they're at the point where they, like you mentioned, the Blue Bloods, they can kind of stand on their own from a football perspective. Obviously, basketball is a little different now. They're putting a lot of money into their men's basketball team and just kind of getting that going, especially with how they did this past season and having a lot more success than they've had the past few seasons in the last coaching staff. But yeah, I think right now they're just still kind of trying to build that brand, at least for football. But if it was men's basketball, I feel like they could probably hold their own. But they're definitely putting a lot into men's basketball to just kind of try to compete with some of those bigger programs.
We had David Teal on yesterday, and I asked him about who would be the upper tier. Not that somebody can't come out of the middle of the pack or a surprise team to win the ACC, but when you have Miami where they are, where, of course, Clemson is, and Louisville having the success, FSU's trying to figure it out. Where is Louisville among the top tier? Are they in the top tier, and how deep is that top tier as far as number of programs?
Loki, you forgot the one in your backyard.
What's that?
You forgot the one, SMU.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You know why? I still think that they're a part of the AAC, and I do that. No, absolutely. Rhett Lashley and company. We've had numerous guests from SMU. You're right. That's a terrible oversight.
No, it's you know what? I respect it because you're going with what makes sense geographically instead of the craziness that is.
Yeah.
No, I would say Louisville is right up there. I mean, if you look at the past 2 years, Jeff's first year, they beat Miami for the first time on the road. Last year, they beat Clemson for the first time ever. So when you look at, it seems like there's always just a little bit of history every single year. His first year, they went to the ACC championship for the first time ever. Ended up losing it to Paul's Fighting Seminoles. But you know, I would honestly, I'd put him in the probably this year, probably top 4 or 5. I don't know if I'm comfortable saying top 3 just yet, but definitely 4 or 5. I could see them finishing in that upper tier just because of, you know, like I said, the defense is a little questionable, but I mean they regressed last year too, and Louisville still did really well. So I think just because of the way that their offense is, you have to give them a chance at least contending. And I do think they have a chance to contend for the ACC this year, just, you know, with how their schedule is built. Going to SMU is going to be difficult. Going to Miami is going to be difficult. Having Clemson at home on a Friday night might work to their advantage. But and then again, you know, the fluke kind of crazy game. So you never know which random team that might be, a Cal or a Virginia Tech or even a Pitt again, that just kind of maybe causes them to slip up a little bit. But you'd hope at this point, Jeff has gotten all the kinks out for Louisville, and so they won't have those, you know, trap games per se.
Alexis, by the way, you mentioned the last happy night I've had watching sports just then. Is this a team that, you know, again, you mentioned like the one score games against Notre Dame and Miami. Are they defensively better this year, do you think? Because Jeff Brom's never going to have a problem scoring points. Like, you know, again, he only lost one game during the regular season with a 6-year quarterback no one wanted in Jack Plummer. You know, so like he can score. Like he's going to figure that out. But are they going to stop people?
I don't know. That is the biggest question mark, because last year I had such high expectations for their defense. They returned so many guys. It's like, okay, year 2, we're going to do it. And then it was just like, what is happening? Like, you're not tackling, or like that was a hole. That was a really big hole for that running back to run through, or just their struggles with mobile quarterbacks, and just kind of left you wondering like, what happened? You had so much positive momentum built up from year 1. And this year, where you return one defensive lineman, both of the linebackers, that kind of linebacker safety hybrid. And then after that, it's the whole secondary and, you know, needing 3 more starting defensive linemen, which they had a nice defensive haul from the portal, but it's just, you kind of wonder how it's all going to come together. You know, like I said, you had such high expectations last year with a lot of returners, and they, in many ways, underperformed this year, where it's going to be a whole new starting cast. And you wonder, okay, what is that going to look like? Spring game, I don't know how much stock you can really put into a spring game, because, you know, you're playing against one another, and how hard are you really going? And then obviously with the post-spring portal opening back up, you just don't know. But Jeff has been really high on some of their DBs that they brought in. And so you kind of hope that they'll look a little better. You just don't really know. Now, I don't think it's a bad place to start with their linebackers, TJ Quinn and Stanquan Clark. Stanquan was out for the spring. But when you have those 2 pieces who have been relatively the most consistent on the defense, that's not a bad thing. Antonio Watts is just a baller. He made that play for them there in the Sun Bowl, you know, breaking up that 2-point conversion to win that game, Jeff Brom's first bowl win at Louisville. So, you know, those 3 guys are definitely great pieces to build around. It's just, what does that look like around them? So, yeah, you know, I know a lot of people were coming for Ron English's head last year, and we're not happy with the way the defense was performing, and just some communication issues that were happening between staff and players. So you hope they kind of get that shored up, clean up the things that they need to clean up. And maybe it will be better with just, you know, new people that they've chosen, as opposed to, you know, getting in players that they have to kind of, in a way, rewire from a previous system. So I'm super curious as to what that defense looks like, especially when you look at some of these offenses in the ACC. I mean, I was just writing about that, I think yesterday. Kevin Jennings is going to be back for SMU. You know, Cade Klubnik is back for Clemson. Obviously, Miami doesn't have their quarterback, but I'm sure they'll have no problem, you know, reloading and getting back to where they need to be. So, yeah, that defense is just the biggest question mark right now, that it's just kind of hard to say. But you would hope that they at least have enough to do enough to make the necessary stops to keep the offense on the field.
I saw you retweet the Pro Football Focus, the college tweet about the highest graded Power 4 running backs with Isaac Brown right there on the list. How good a player is Isaac Brown?
Isaac is insane. Like, just the speed and the way that he can just shift gears and find his holes. Like, it's crazy to think that he's the first true freshman in Louisville history to run for 1,000 yards when they had Lamar here, when they had Michael Bush here. So another hidden gem, like a 3-star that kind of got some offers, didn't do a whole lot of camps coming out of or while he was in high school. So I think that kind of, hurt him in a way that he wasn't able to get that same exposure. But again, diamond in the rough kind of guy, not real big, but just quick, underrated. And, obviously now he's going to have the spotlight on him, but yeah, he was fun to watch. He was definitely, and that's the thing, like, talking about Tyler, but like Isaac made Tyler's job so much easier because it left defenses in a weird position of like, okay, do we defend him or him, So no, Isaac, I see really great things coming from Isaac heading into that sophomore year, because I think they said in high school, his sophomore year was his best year. So we'll see what that looks like in college.
All right. Are you glad you did it by video now, Paul?
Huge hit.
Yes, I'm very glad. And my mom said to tell you all. She said hi. I let her know that I was coming on, so she wanted me to tell you guys hi.
Well, tell her we said hi, and we miss you. Good to see you. Thank you very much for your time, Alexis. Great. All right, Alexis Cubitt with us on 365 Sports, and she covers Louisville. She was at Clemson and covered Clemson for a nice chunk, and then now with the Louisville Cardinals of the ACC as well. When we come back, Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, on the 7 of the Power 4 football programs in the state of Texas, and the ratings of them and how he sees it. Remember, he went on that long tour. We've had him on a couple of times when he was doing that. This is 365 Sports.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary and trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget, from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560, or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Mike Craven does a hell of a job with what he does, covers for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, Texas Football Online, and he joins us on 365 Sports. Saw him, in fact, at the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame with Greg Tepper, a good friend of the show as well. Mike, in the end, you had that tour where you visited a lot of programs. I know the Circa Sports, as far as numbers and predictions and wins and losses, et cetera. We'll get to that too. Are there a couple of stories from your tour that perhaps either unique or surprising or that jumped out to you the most?
It's a great question. I think at A&M, that stands out to me. Mike Elko going into year 2, just his belief in this football team, right? In the transfer portal era, you can go and improve at quarterback in the transfer portal. And Elko and Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, clearly believe in Marcel Reed, putting a lot of eggs in that basket. They think the defense is going to be better. They think the pieces around the quarterback are better this year. Obviously, the offensive line is going to be really good. And so how A&M does depends on Marcel Reed. If he hits, I think the Aggies could be a college football playoff team. If he doesn't, they're going to be struggling to reach a bowl game with that schedule. So it just feels like the Aggies have huge variance. I think what's going to happen in SMU is going to be interesting. They spent a ton of money to make that roster viable to win in year 1 as a Power 4 program. They've had to replace most of the defense, all the skill position players, and I'm not sure the guys they brought in were as good as the guys who left. So what happens with SMU? And then obviously, the Big 12 schools are the Big 12 schools, and who knows what's going to happen. You mentioned the Circa Sports lines. I was shocked to see Houston and TCU have the same win projection at 6.5. So the state's going to be cool this year. There's a lot of returning quarterbacks, a lot of questions otherwise. And so, Arch Manning, obviously, there's a lot of storylines across the state.
A&M in particular has a really interesting schedule. They got UTSA and Utah State, and then it's like it's nothing but bangers until they get to Samford. Even Mississippi State, who they classically have not played well against, and Arkansas, who could, that's probably the biggest wild card, maybe the SEC. If they really hit, they could upset some people or not. Is it really all on Marcel Reed, or do you think it's on that defense as well to be able to kind of, bounce back a little bit and help them when they were deficient a couple times towards the end of last year?
Yeah, the defense has to be better. We can go back and listen to Mike Elko's press conference after that Las Vegas Bowl. He was at a loss for how bad that secondary was, how bad that pass defense was at the end of the year. And remember, when he was a defensive coordinator at A&M, he left with the best secondary, the best pass defense in the country when he became Duke's head coach. So I just imagine that's going to get fixed. They did some stuff in the portal at edge rush and in the secondary. When I sat down with him in the spring, he talked about how defense doesn't get enough credit from how much it improves from year 1 to year 2, because instead of thinking and figuring out what you're supposed to do, what your reads are, you just kind of read and react. You start playing faster. And so he's assuming that the defense is going to take the next step. So that's why I think so much is on Marcel Reed. When you see these preseason top 25s across the nation, you see A&M as high as 10 or 11, and then you see in some where they're not even ranked. And to me, it all comes down to your opinion of Marcel Reed and what he can do as a quarterback. He's going to be good in the run game. That running game is going to be really good. Reuben Owens, Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels, they're going to run the football. But if Marcel Reed can become just an above average passer, like a plus in the passing game, all of a sudden A&M goes from a 7-8 win expected team to maybe a 10 win expected team. And in the SEC, you go 10-2 and you're in, right? So it is a lot riding on Marcel Reed's shoulders. And again, they didn't go and try to find somebody in the portal to compete with them. And to me, that suggests that they really believe in him. They're putting everything on him, and we'll see if that works out.
Mike, I don't know how often you got to be around there during the Jimbo era, but I was just curious about how just different the vibes are under Elko as opposed to the previous regime, where it just felt like things were always at a breaking point at any moment. And there's obviously a lot of money flowing, and that hasn't changed. But is it while the expectations of pressure just as high, is it a little bit calmer in some ways? Is there any notable difference? How would you describe it, if at all?
I guess I would describe it as just a more mature place now. I do think the way an athletic department runs, or at least the way a football program runs, dictates on the personality of the head coach. And, Jimbo Fisher got a blank check and got a fake national trophy right away. And I don't think he had to do or wanted to do a lot of things that he didn't want to do, right? Like if you're going to owe me $75 million to go away, like I'm going to do it the way I want to. And I think there was a little bit of chaos behind the scenes. There was a lot of different messaging and a lot of different messengers. I think Mike Elko has just kind of brought a professional approach in there, a more laid back approach. He allows kind of the people around him to do their job, I think, a little bit freer and with less pressure. And so who knows what it ends on the field, right? I mean, like he goes 8-4 last year. I think he's going to have to do better than that to stay A&M's coach in the long term. But I do think that he's provided a little bit of adulthood in that building and like more accountability. And the players talk about it all the time. It's just like how he brought some accountability, some discipline that place, obviously lacked there towards the end.
So the Circa Sports on the over-under on wins, and you did really well with this. I believe it was a year ago. So the Big 12, as you know, can be an absolute just like, I don't know, Rubik's Cube, if you want to use that, because every year there's 3 that are better than we think, a lot better than we think, and 2 or 3 that just fall, like last year, Utah and Oklahoma State. So there's 3 teams. They have 8.5 wins, which, of course, is tantalizing. Arizona State, K-State, and Texas Tech. Which of those 3 or any of those 3 would you buy or sell?
I'd probably sell Arizona State just from the idea of a regression to mean and just, maybe you don't win some of those coin flip games and you go 8-4, which is still a really good season, but you don't hit the over. I like Avery Johnson at Kansas State. Maybe I'm a little close to the trees here, but just what Texas Tech's done in the portal, and then you look at that schedule, especially the non-conference schedule, and it's hard to find more than 3 wins. Like 8-4 would be a disaster season in Lubbock. Like you're spending more than everybody else in the conference. You have your quarterback back. You get better in the trenches. Josh Kelly, Coy Aiken, or Caleb Douglas and Coy Aiken out there at wide receiver. Like Texas Tech should be a 9-3, 10-2 football team and right there to be in Arlington. Like I think Joey McGuire would say it would be a failure if they don't end up in the Big 12 championship game. So to me, I'm taking the over on Texas Tech just over a personnel standpoint. Like they did so well in the portal in a conference that everybody's pretty even talent-wise, like a little bit of a bump. I think that's what, served Colorado well last year. They had the 2 best players on the field at all times, and in a conference where everything's a 3-point line, like that can be enough. I think Tech is going to have the playmakers that other schools don't, and that's going to be enough in a league where everything's a coin flip.
Of the 4 teams that are at the bottom, 5.5 wins for Arizona, UCF, and 5 each for Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Which is most likely or more likely to get to a bowl game? Arizona, UCF, Oklahoma State, or West Virginia?
I guess I'm going to take Oklahoma State for like a non-scientific reason of it feels like every single time we think Mike Gundy's got a great team, they underachieve, and every single time we try to write off Mike Gundy and put him out to pasture, like they go 9-3 or 10-2 and make the Big 12 championship game. So a lot of those places you mentioned are new head coaches, and there's so much a boom and bust factor with that. It's hard to predict what will happen at UFC, what will happen at West Virginia. But Oklahoma State, like with that established culture, back against the wall, nobody believes in us. That typically is Mike Gundy's music, and maybe he's able to kind of pull it off one more time and go 7-5 and surprise everybody.
So, Mike, I think these win totals show us that even Vegas doesn't quite have full confidence in being able to just outright, lay the land out there when it comes to the Big 12. It's just it's so unpredictable. But you did mention one of their over-unders there at the top, and that was TCU at 6.5, which does seem like it's a bit low, given Josh Hoover's return, et cetera. Why do you think perhaps, or why do you believe maybe they're more in that area than a little bit higher up the list like some others?
I think in the Big 12, it can be a conference where people turn the page halfway through the season when a team's not very good. And I think TCU being 3-3 and how they lost to Utah and, how they lost to Houston and getting blown out against SMU, I think people just kind of stopped paying attention to what TCU was, figured that they won a couple of games and kind of moved on, didn't think about it. And they were really good at the end of the year. The only time they lost after they were 3-3 was that 3-point game at Baylor against a really good Baylor team. So TCU was one of the hotter teams of the year last year. I think Josh Hoover at quarterback, one of the more underrated players in the country. It sounds like Tennessee, made a push to get him out of Fort Worth. They're kind of the opposite of Texas Tech, where Texas Tech made a lot of splashes, 2 new coordinators, a ton of transfer portal. Sonny Dykes going into year 4 is betting on recruiting and development. Kendall Briles going into year 3 as the OC, Andy Avalos, year 2 as the defensive coordinator. They got a handful of guys from the portal, but more supplemental type players that are going to help at wide receiver in a few positions. Like, they're going in-house and they're betting on continuity in a college football world with a lot of turnover. I think that they could be a surprise team in the Big 12. I don't know if they have a year like they did in 22, obviously. The 6.5 feels really low. Now, Vegas, those casinos get bigger and nicer for a reason. They know what they're doing. Sometimes you walk into what you think is a easy bet and you lose the house. But TCU at 6.5 was the biggest. 6.5 was the biggest shocker to me. I think that they win at least 8 games.
Mike, I'm a little surprised at West Virginia at 5 and UCF at 5.5, given that we know more about West Virginia's roster than we do about UCF's.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, really, honestly. Like that what's going to happen outside the Big 12? Like, this time of year, especially for me, I am so nose deep in the magazine that, like, I know nothing outside of the 13 programs in the state, right? So, like, if you ask me who the starting quarterback at UCF was, I'd have to really think about it. So, what's going on there with that line? Like, I do not know, but I'm with you there. And I think West Virginia, just with Rich Rod coming off of a championship last year, or a championship game appearance last year in Conference USA, like, I think there's some familiarity there that maybe he can hit the ground running, but a bowl game for either of those teams feels highly unlikely.
How realistic do you think a bowl game is for Willie Fritz in Houston?
Yeah, I was surprised at the 6.5.
Yeah.
I mean, I sent off the Houston section 2 days ago. I have them at 6-6, and I thought that was a good year. To go to win 7 games, to win 8 games would be incredible. It's just hard to know. Like, you're betting on Willie Fritz if you're taking the over, because How can you know anything about this Cougars team? Like, 9 of their starters on offense are transfers, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Out of their starting 22, I would imagine 15 were transfers, 14 were transfers. So maybe there's a big hit. Like, I think Florida State's kind of the marker for transfer portal. Like, if it hits, you can go 13-0 and be a national championship contender. If it doesn't, you can be 2-10 and the worst team in FBS, right? And so I don't know if Houston's boom or bust is that big, but you're betting on Willie Fritz and just his ability to coach and put together a team if you're taking the over, because there's not a lot of knowns there, including Connor Wakeman at quarterback, and if he can stay healthy, and if he becomes kind of what we thought he was as a recruit.
Paul and Craig, and Mike's going to be on. He's on with us, but this question for you. Among the ACC, there's a bunch of good quarterbacks. We've mentioned that in the Big 12. Eli Holstein, C.J. Briley, Kevin Jennings, Haynes King, Klubnik, and Kyron Drones. And there might be 1 or 2 others we're missing, but there was a graphic the ACC put up about coming back. 4 of the 6 are Texas homegrown in the ACC, with Jennings, King, Klubnik, and Drones. And these guys have some seasoning to them too, don't they, Mike?
Yeah, those are a lot of really good players. Haynes King's kind of like career arc has been awesome to watch. Become one of the more steady quarterbacks in the country. Same with Cade Klubnik. The reason I was at the Hall of Fame, and again, congratulations on the induction. This state has become a quarterback factory. The top pick in the NFL draft was a Texas high school guy. The 2 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl were Texas high school football players. I think 8 of the top 10 in total passing last year in college football were Texas high school football players. And so anytime you see these quarterback graphics, even at an ACC conference where there's only one Texas school, you just notice how many of these former gunslingers in Texas are. And I'd imagine that's Todd Dodge and Art Briles and Mike Leach and just the 7-on-7 influence. But something that's fascinating to watch. And every time you turn on the TV on Saturday or Sunday, you're seeing the quarterbacks that led teams to big wins on Friday night here in the state. And I think it's one of the more impressive things that we've been able to do as a state in the last 20 years is just become the home for quarterbacks in football, where quarterback is the king.
Last question from me, and I think us as well, is about the tug of war right now in the college football playoff, what it is with 12 again this year, it was last year, and eventually 16. Should the Big 12 just basically say, we're happy, give us our 2 automatic qualifiers and we'll shut up? Or would they, in your opinion, should they still kind of keep pushing for more?
Well, I mean, I'm married, right? Sometimes even if you're right, you have to take the best deal. And I feel like that's where the Big 12 is at. Like, they're right. Like, they should fight the power. Like, the SEC and the Big 10 are trying to monopolize this thing, bully everybody out of the way, and give some folks some scraps while they're starving, so they'll just be satisfied. It has like a very Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake vibe coming from them, right? But also, the negative or the downside of playing this game of Russian roulette is you hit the chamber with the bullet and they just leave you out completely. And how many times are there two Big 12 teams in the top 16? Like, it's not every single year. So I do think it's the best deal that they're going to get, but I also feel like they are morally in the right here. And I would also, compliment them on fighting the good fight and trying to stick up for the sport in a league where so many just look out for their self-interest. But I just don't think it's going to get any better for them. And if I was the Big 12, some kind of like concrete solution that allows me to be a part of this thing and have two teams guaranteed in it every single year, might be good enough just to kind of bite the bullet and take one on the chin.
Yeah, I Mike, and I say this all the time. The SEC and Big 10 are fighting against inevitable, like, things that will not happen that much. And so that's the thing I would push about, like, are you guys afraid of the 1 year every decade that this might not happen? Like, let's be real here. But I don't know if that argument really holds water when it comes to them, because sports are cyclical. And you could have a down year like the SEC did this year and didn't have 4 deserving teams to get in.
And I think they like the power and the ability to suppress. Mm-hmm. And if they're guaranteed these amount of spots, then there's not any room for these other conferences to build up their depth to have 3 or 4 teams get in there, because there's no spot for them anyway. And so they can kind of chokehold and stranglehold the talent and convince, just like they have for a long time now, that if you want to play for championship, you have to come here. And that's why I celebrate the Texas Techs of the world who kill in the transfer portal and go spend money, or the Miami Hurricanes who just, money whipped an offensive tackle from Georgia to come down there. Like, NIL has some downsides, but the plus sides is it's putting some programs in position to compete at a level that they haven't been before. And it's spreading out the talent, because instead of being a backup at Alabama, you can go be the starter at Texas Tech and make some money in the process. And so I think the SEC and the Big Ten see that, and they're trying to counteract that by having a stranglehold on all the spots and the entry into the invitational that they're creating.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Love what you do. Appreciate your time. Mike Craven with us. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, which is the Bible of Texas high school and college football in the state of Texas. That comes out every summer, and they do a remarkable job. Now, we're joined by Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. We have kept him probably from an earlier dinner date that he had, and wearing the Missouri Tigers logo today.
I thought that would fit right in with your college talk.
It does. It absolutely. Eli Drinkwitz, are you on speed dial with him, Mickey, after games and suggestions?
Last week ago, Thursday, I think it was, they had their coaches' caravan here at one of the chicken and pickle facilities, and brought in the football coach, the women's new basketball coach, a couple other coaches. So we got a chance to sit around and talk to them and harass them with questions about who's the next quarterback.
Well, I mean, how many wins did they have last year? Was it
9?
A year? Yeah, they had 9-11 the year before that, I think it was. And yeah, but you don't hear about them because of the names of other teams in the conference, with Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and a few others as well.
And Mickey, that was 9 wins with missing their starting quarterback for 4 games and 2 others that he didn't complete the entire game. So it was a pretty good season, all in all.
All right, so your thoughts. By the way, did you see where Brock Purdy's about to get paid? It looks like Iowa State's Brock Purdy with the 49ers. You always wonder about the next deal. No surprise, right? They can't let him walk away. He's been good for them.
No, exactly right. And that's why you see them haven't had problems keeping some of their star players, because they knew the salary cap was going to catch up with them. Imagine that. When you have star players and an expensive quarterback, you can't afford a steak on every plate, right?
No, that's true, Mickey. Okay, so The most overhyped thing in the NFL is how they do the schedule release. But in the just actual like math of it, other than the Cowboys and Chiefs are America's holiday teams because they're both playing on Thanksgiving and Christmas. This is not the easiest schedule in the world for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year. At least on paper, before something falls apart for some teams, they've got it really tough, especially down the stretch.
Well, we knew this, back when the season finished, that who their opponents were going to be, that they were going to have 10 games against teams that made the playoffs in 2024 because of having to play the AFC West and the NFC North, where in both divisions, each division had 3 teams in the playoffs. And then when you had to play your own division and there were 2 games or 2 teams that you have to play twice that made the playoffs, that suggested that you were going to have a pretty tough schedule. Now, as I wrote on Wednesday in my column, it's like, well, I think the NFL computer had a little giggle there, forcing them to play 6 consecutive games the second half of the season against playoff teams, including both teams that played in the Super Bowl and 3 division champions. So, they could have spread that out just a little bit, but, you got to play who they tell you got to play. So you better, buckle up and make sure you win some games that when you get to the 6 of those last 7, maybe you have a little bit of a cushion.
Mickey, what did you glean from rookie minicamp?
They really didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So,
It's the least I've seen written about it ever.
Well, they only had one day of access to the practice and the locker room, I believe. And they had a walkthrough and look, when you have 19 guys, you can't play football, right?
Yeah.
So individual drills, I see them here now doing their strength and conditioning phase 2 of the offseason workout. So you can actually see the guys, what they actually look like. Like the other day, I saw this very lanky guy out there doing rehab work, right? And hopefully we don't get a lot of noise here. I'm still at the Star, and I can see the helicopters ready to land right outside my window. So, if you see things shaking here, you'll know why. And I was like, well, who is that guy? And it ended up being the cornerback from East Carolina, Savon Ravel. And you can read that he's 6'2", right? Well, to see a corner out there doing those drills at 6'2", you're going, well, my goodness, who's that guy? And so, you kind of get a look at them physically, but we'll find out more this coming week when they start their 3 practices a week for 3 weeks with the OTA practices and another chance to talk to some of these guys.
Mickey, I'm curious about Deuce Vaughn a little bit. And he was such a great story and he was such a fun player to watch in college, but he's 5'6", 176 pounds. If they could find a way to get him loose in the offense, he has got the athleticism to make people miss, a la former Kansas State running back like himself, Darren Sproles. But Sproles was bigger, a little more to him than Deuce is, and I've seen no evidence of him being able to really take on blocks, even though he's willing to. He's just gets swallowed up, right?
Yeah, I think if indeed he makes the team, I think it's kind of a gadget player, because the other thing is if he's not on special teams, and if he's on special teams, he's a return guy, right? Well, they got some guy that's gone to the Pro Bowl, right? Cavante Turpin. And then the addition of Jaden Blue, the running back, who's probably going to make this team, right? And you add his speed element to what they got going. It's going to be tough for Deuce to, he'll get opportunities in training camp and preseason, but it's a pretty crowded field right now for him to figure out how to get on the 53-man roster, which is unfortunate because I agree with you. They figured out a way to use him, and maybe his former offensive coordinator, offensive line coach Connor Riley is now here with the Cowboys as the offensive line coach. So he may have a little bit of influence on what takes place with Deuce.
I know we've brought this up before before the draft because of who might be available, what they needed, depth-wise, starters, etc. But of the players who could be a part of what would be the normal starting, let's say 22 plus 5 or 6 rotational type starters, who will not be at training camp healthy? Who will not, in your opinion, be a part of the lineup when they start the season in September?
Yeah, I think there's some unknown there, David. I think that, the possibilities of guys starting at training camp on physically unable to perform, and they will do that with somebody that hasn't gone through the entire off-season preparation, just so that if there's any delay, then they can put them on PUP to start the season. Trayvon Diggs, we can look at him, and there's a good chance he starts training camp on PUP, trying to recover from his knee surgery. And it's not a common knee surgery. He had I think the easiest way to describe it is he had a pothole in his cartilage that they tried to fill in. I don't know that he's ready. I don't know that Revel is ready. They think Sam Williams will be ready to go. I don't think DeMarvion Overshone will be ready to start maybe even the season. So if you're starting on PUP in training camp, well, okay, maybe, you need more than the 3 or 4 weeks preparation for the season, and you got to start the regular season on PUP. So yeah, Josh Butler tore his ACL in December. He's going to be hard pressed to be ready. Dak will be ready. He'll take part on a limited basis in the OTAs. I think he's to that point right now. So those are probably the main guys of some concern, heading towards training camp, and then we'll see what takes place there. Not everybody recovers at the same speed, and but again, the cornerback position becomes somewhat of a concern for lack of experience there. And I would imagine they got their eyes open for a veteran free agent that's still out there. I would imagine they have their eyes open for a veteran backup quarterback type that has some starting experience. They solved, I think, the wide receiver concern with the George Pickens pickup. And then, you got to see who, as Brad Sham would always say, we go to training camp to find out who's going to get hurt. And then you got to go from there, right? But it's true, you lose guys. So, they've got some kind of what I writing for my column tonight is they've got some guys that they really need to step up, take the next step in their careers to help fill some holes that they still probably have.
Mickey, I would say like Trayvon Diggs to me, I guess I would, if to answer Sogi's question, he's the one I wouldn't bet on the most just because of the mystery surrounding that first round of rehab he did that they were, I guess, disappointed with.
Yeah, and he's, I don't know if he'll be here for the OTAs or not. Remember, they do be voluntary, right?
Yeah.
So he's been, but I understand that they've been able to keep in tabs with him and the people he's doing the rehabs with. So, but again, until you kind of get your hands on them, it's really hard to know. And yeah, and there's there's no guarantee there. So if he's not there, then you got Duron Bland, right? You drafted Revel, but again, who knows if he's ready? Kalen Carson impressed him in training camp last year, suffered the shoulder injury, kind of lost his confidence. So you kind of have him. They made the trade for Career Elam, but he in his time in Buffalo never blossomed. So he's kind of a body. And after that, if I'm forgetting anybody, you just got a bunch of guys. And so that's why I say, if you have an opportunity to bring back, I don't know, and I'm not saying they got their eye on them, but a Stephon Gilmore type that's got some skins on the wall, I think you would have to do it. But again, with guys like that, some of them just don't want to have to work in the off season. Or they're waiting for a team to suffer an injury where they're desperate and they might pay you just a little bit more on a 1-year deal, and you can be mercenary. That's my opinion with Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't want to go do any work in the off season. He might show up for training camp. Mm-hmm. And, if you're desperate at the quarterback position, you'll make that concession depending on how much money you want to pay him.
Mickey, just a couple of just career questions for you. In all the time you've covered the Cowboys, and this is kind of a random question, and you take your time, we could bring it next week. What player who you interviewed or got to know may have been the most misunderstood player you can remember?
Misunderstood. Oh boy,
you want to file that in your back pocket?
Because if you were asking me who was the best, I could tell you that. You know what? As a player, not a guy that cooperated with the media, probably. Who am I thinking of? I need to get my book out and look at it.
Well, as far as guys that weren't very cooperative with the media, obviously Haley was one of those, right?
Yeah, and that's probably my answer, right? As a teammate, he was awfully good. As a player, he was awfully good. As a guy committed to the team, he had back problems that he tried playing through. And so he wasn't as disruptive, I think, as some people think he was. I can remember him when Nate would come to training camp every year, way overweight.
Oh, yeah.
And he would never be able to pass the conditioning test. So he always owed Jimmy, however many 80-yard runs that they had to complete that he couldn't complete. Well, there was Haley at training camp running those deals with him to kind of drag him along, because he knew that they needed Nate Newton ready to play. And so, yeah, I think he was, funny thing today was he'll come out here and he'll try to work with the defensive ends, and he kind of wears people out. And I think he was wearing Micah Parsons out today, right? And so, yeah, but in his mind, he means good. How he presents it is not always the best way. But I could remember going back and forth with him, and then later on when he finished, he couldn't just come up to you and shake hands, right? He would pick me up. And I was like, Charles, I would rather you punch me in the face than to pick me up off the ground, damn it.
Yeah,
And he was
very
big enough
it's
to
not,
do it,
He
right?
was being fun-loving, but that's kind of demeaning.
Yeah, right?
When he
God,
does it.
come
Not
on.
that he was trying, yeah.
An old man up off the ground, right?
Yeah,
Which, by the way, I used to think you were getting old when they started hiring NFL head coaches that were younger than you. Now I'm older than the Pope.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I never thought of it. How old is he? How old is the Pope?
69.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So wow, Mickey,
But you know what? He grew up just a little bit north of our
Yeah.
neighborhood in Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
we
said
took
that too. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
last week, right?
I'm not sure I've ever told you the story about Charles Haley, but it's my favorite one that includes me because the first time I met him was at the college football playoff the first year in Dallas. They had a Radio Row type thing. And so I went up there by myself and did the show, and like Craig and Q interviewed Brian Bosworth, and I just had we were doing interviews, and Smokey calls me, goes, and then I did like 6 interviews in a row between talking to Smokey. I said, look, I got a lot of people coming up. I'll tell you in a second. So he calls me back frantically in a second. He goes, who you got? I'm like, I got 20 minutes with Charles Haley, and his exact words were bullshit. You did.
Yeah, I did.
And I was like, no, I mean, he came and sat down and we talked for 20 minutes, and he was totally pleasant. He goes, Charles Haley was? I was like, it was unbelievable. I was so thrilled to have him.
Yeah, I think about 10 years
I
ago.
was thinking that wasn't David's word. That was his word live on the interview.
Yeah.
Because we used to do the Legends radio show, and he did it several times. And I'd always kind of remind him, it's like, Charles, this is live radio. You can't say what you just said. And I always warn the guy back at the studio to have your finger on the button just in case, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I can't say, and he repeated it. And it's like, no, you can't say that, right?
Yep.
And he was about as unfiltered as can be. But you know how you see things and you go, the apocalypse is upon us. One day out here, he was on the field and he's really struggling to walk normally. And he's with 2 of his grandchildren. And I'm going, oh my God, anybody that put him in charge of 2 grandchildren needs to have their heads examined, right? But there he was waddling after the 2 little kids. They couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old.
Mickey, thank you very much. Appreciate you being patient with us and also doing it today. We'll talk with you again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Enjoy my time with you guys.
Thank you. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com with us on 365 Sports. We will update, because we did the draft, the PGA Championship, who's on the cut line, who's winning. Man, it's been interesting. Some of the bigger names are starting to get closer to the top, but still a lot of work to be done. Will Rory or Spieth or names like that make the cut? We'll do that and more. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, ready to rule the road. They have a 2024 Dodge Charger Scat Pack, all-wheel drive here. Beast of a car. Feel the power of 484 horsepower under the hood, all-wheel drive for ultimate grip, built-in navigations, guiding you every mile. Also, jaw-dropping $18,460 off MSRP. That's right, performance, technology, pure muscle at a price you cannot believe. And I had to kind of do a double take on that. Introducing the all-new 2025 Dodge Durango GT. Bold design meets serious capability, sleek styling, room for the entire crew, advanced navigation to keep you on track. This SUV built for whatever you want to do when you're driving around wherever it might be, even throughout trips, in fact, vacation this summer. Right now, Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, drive home for just $37,446. What I'm talking about with that Durango, that's top-notch tech, power, style, and much, much more. And finally, the all-new 2025 Ram 2500 Tradesman, built to haul, tow, and take any job at its mighty 6.4-liter gas engine. $5,384 off MSRP, and get an additional $500 if you're a first responder or someone involved in the military. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Mention this to Mickey, and we will bring it up. Iowa State alum Brock Purdy, 49ers, 5 years, $265 million, $181 million guaranteed money. Purdy, of course, was Mr. Irrelevant, the last player drafted out of Iowa State. He has had a pretty nice run with San Francisco, and now he finally gets paid.
Yeah, I don't think he's obviously one of like the premier quarterbacks. When you start talking about like who are the best quarterbacks in the entire league, I think you're going to probably be waiting a while for Brock Purdy to come off of your lips there. But he's done a nice job and enough to be rewarded. Got to a Super Bowl, obviously, and I think you just still see people debating on like his value, right, and like where he is in the big pecking order. But San Francisco obviously sees the need and the want to invest in him. And I think what a life-changing day for Brock Purdy this is. I mean, you now know that no matter what, you've got nearly $200 million that are coming your way, guaranteed. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
$181 million.
$180 freaking million guaranteed, guys. Think about that. Like that's
I don't even know what he was making, Paul, 2.5 or 3 million.
Slight difference.
He
was the
last pick in the draft. So
hold on. He earned $2.6 million over the first 3 years of his career.
Yeah, $2.6 million over the first 3 years of his career. He's about to make $50 million per season.
2.9 a week.
2.9 a week.
Said he'll get paid now per week under his new deal, which averages out to $2.9 million a week.
Yeah, so like I only bring up this. I mean, Paul can speak to this as well because you watch a lot of the NFL. Like, there's always a debate about how good Brock Purdy is, right? Like, is he going to be the guy that leads San Francisco to the Super Bowl or whatever? Like, we'll find out. But in the meantime, damn good for you. Good for you, Brock Purdy.
He's already done it once.
He's already done it once.
He's
But
already
like,
done it
can he
once,
be
so.
the? You know what I'm saying, though? Can he be like the franchise guy and go win multiple titles and do all those things? Can he be Patrick Mahomes of San Francisco? Not like that, level necessarily, but there are people that don't think that he's one of the better quarterbacks. Well, money talks, and good for him, man. That's awesome. I see Iowa State fans are all over the place already celebrating that, and what life-changing money that is, no matter what your background was, unless you were like the son of Jeff Bezos or something like that, then maybe you wouldn't blink. But, man, what a story.
Statistically, and I never thought about this, but statistically, he was first in the NFL since he took over as a starter in yards per attempt, fourth in passing yards, seventh in touchdowns, and also fourth in quarterback QBR, total QBR. So he's up there. Now, again, he's not thought of, you're right, as among the top quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, obviously with Allen and Mahomes, et cetera. But
here's the thing. He's getting paid just quarterback money now. Like, that's the thing is before your eyes get too big, just realize that's what quarterbacks starting in the NFL are going to be getting now, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just the time that we're in now at this point.
Well, he's kind of a bargain too, given some of the other quarterbacks in the league when it comes to just total cost. And, look, the 49ers, look, the Cowboys, there is luck and skill involved in the draft. The Cowboys lucked into Tony Romo and Dak Prescott, a little bit. I mean, there's luck involved there. And then with Brock Purdy, I mean, look, there's a little bit of skill in that, going like, hey, this would be a good guy. We like his attitude. But it was luck that he actually hadn't hit his peak yet at Iowa State. So you can't look a gift horse in the mouth. And it's weird that, Trey Lance is now, off in the wilderness, and here's Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and if you're the 49ers, like Seattle did with Russell Wilson, and we can name some of the others, who you get them for a low amount. For example, Brady was, a sixth-round pick. And you take advantage, and you have to take advantage when the quarterback's not getting the $35 to $50 million a year.
Well, I just think for anybody saying overpaid, it's like, no, it's the going rate for quarterbacks.
Going rate, yeah,
I mean, especially a quarterback who's been to the Super Bowl. So that's really what I'm getting at, is it's not an overpay. It's just in line with what he's deserved at this point. And so I don't know. I don't recall much of his background. But, I mean, what a day. I mean, to have $180 million guaranteed coming your way over the next few years, that's incredible, life-changing money right there. So good for Brock Purdy and the Purdy family. I see there's a lot of different accounts and whatnot that are running around trying to figure out where exactly this places him in a lot of ways. And so I'm pretty much seeing across the board that he's now like the 7th or 8th highest paid quarterback in the league. You know who number 1 is, right?
Dak
Prescott, $60 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Burrow, $55 million a year. Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, along with Burrow, $55 million a year. And then you get into Tua and Jared Goff, and that's where you're going to have Brock Purdy.
I wonder where Stafford's at.
He's down, and he's behind Mahomes.
It's all about timing too. Of course, Mahomes has an incredible deal in a lot of ways.
Patrick Mahomes, like, if he just
got negative and said you're going to pay me as much more than anybody else.
What if he decided not to be a team player? What would that contract look like?
I would be shocked if he did, but you never know. Golly, just another $100 million above Purdy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Paul, are you listening?
Yeah, I mean, did you ask me that question, or you just ask it to the?
He asked us that question.
Asked us a question. Okay. Yeah. So. Let's see. Yeah, Stafford's down lower.
No, where would Mahomes be if he just said, I'm going to be...
He'd be above Dak.
He'd be above everybody.
So you're looking at bare minimum $60+ million per year.
He'd be above Dak. I mean, like, there's no question about that. Now, he did the Brady thing.
Yep.
Now, his overall deal is massive, and he's going to see most of that money. And he's got it in the contract where, the things that they'll automatically renegotiate, and like money will go here and there. So they've set it up to where his contract should never really be a problem for them. And he was very wise to do that because he wants to win Super Bowls. And the other thing is, we've seen, like, he will make up, whereas a guy like Brock Purdy will get his endorsements, Dak will get his endorsements. He'll have some, sleep number and whatever. Patrick Mahomes, though, like where Dak might have two, Patrick already has, like, he's on television every other second.
Yeah.
It's him and Peyton Manning, just like all the time.
It's either the State Farm commercial or the Head and Shoulders commercial, and it's
The
all like
T-Mobile
big ass brands, T-Mobile, big ass brand, and that's not even counting
that's
Adidas.
That's not even his contract. That's just additional money. That's
I mean, I think we were sitting next to and talk. I mean, I didn't go up and talk to him because he was surrounded. He's surrounded by people, and he had his security and everything. I wasn't going to bother him, but we were sitting close to a guy who's going to be probably a billionaire at some point, sooner rather than later, based on the amount of money that he's pulling in. I think that's very realistic. I think Brittany probably makes a little bit as well, and probably some sponsorships or Instagram or something. I don't know exactly what she's got going on, but I think that's probably very realistic. And it's funny because last night I was watching Welcome to Wrexham because it came back. I love that show.
Yeah.
It came back, and Tom Brady followed the path of Rob and Ryan, and he bought a club, and so they faced Tom Brady's club in a match in the episode. So that was interesting to see Tom Brady make an appearance. But that's the guy who's a big entrepreneur. Patrick could blow past all that. He's still so young.
And if you think about it, like he's not even scratching the surface. He could be, and Adidas has never really had this guy. He could be the Michael Jordan of Adidas. Like, they've had guys, but nobody that's synonymous with their brand like Michael Jordan is with Nike.
Yeah.
The way that football, how popular he is and how popular the NFL is right now in America, he could finally be the guy that when you think Adidas, like, I can think of 10 guys who are Adidas, but like when I think of Nike, I think of one person first.
Absolutely.
He could be the guy that you think of.
You think of who do you think of with Nike? Nike Tiger?
No, Michael Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Michael Jordan.
That's what he's
Michael
saying.
Jordan.
Since
there's no Tiger without Michael.
No,
I think of Jordan. I think of, I wouldn't have thought about Tiger initially, but I think of Bo Jackson still to this day. But Patrick won't be 30 until September.
Yeah.
So he's 29 still for another 4 or 5 months, and you think of what all he's accomplished. But this is about Brock Purdy. I will say it ties in because there's two guys who are making a boatload of money. They're former Big 12 players if you want to tie it all back into everything. And I know the Oklahoma guys don't count anymore, but they did play in the Big 12 in some cases. So anyways, Brock Purdy, what a day. What a life-changing day. And, yeah, there was a lot of talk over the last couple of years about how little he was making in comparison to the guys he was going up against and playing in the playoffs and all that. Well, that's not the case anymore. Nope. There's not going to be any stories about how he's only making – what was the original, $2 million over 3 years?
Yeah, over 3 years, he's got about 700 and some thousand a year.
Yeah, he's going to make that in 1 week in his new contract. That's crazy.
So one of the things about it as well, last year they weren't very good. They were 6-11. Deebo Samuel was beat up. McCaffrey got hurt. Kittle was really never healthy, and there was one other major part, Ayuk, right, that was out, and so. He still had good stats despite a lot of those injuries.
And they almost traded Ayuk in the offseason as well if they could have found a team to match it up with because they were trying to get under the cap to get Brock. Now I think they're fine, and we'll see. But there's a good chance Ricky Pearsall might be the number one receiver next year.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. When you look at quarterbacks that were a steal, I mentioned Russell Wilson, Seattle. They took advantage of that. They went and won a Super Bowl. They lost one, too. Who are some Brady – and I don't, of course, that was back long time ago. Who are because Lamar Jackson got drafted high. Josh Allen's drafted high. Mahomes was a first-round pick.
Russell Wilson's not even a fair compare. Nobody compares to Purdy, really, except for Brady. As far as Russell Wilson was a third-rounder.
But I'm talking about in terms of salary cap impact. When you get a guy like that instead of a first-round pick, they were able to build around him and keep people, add people for a good 3 to 5 years because he wasn't making a lot of money. But Purdy, the 7th round last pick of the draft.
Well, now because of the rookie wage scale, I think almost anytime Jaden Daniels is financially right now a steal because, he played at the level of a $50 million quarterback on the first year of his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they can go out and get Deebo Samuel and all the guys they're getting because they're only in year 2 of his rookie deal contract, even though it's higher for a lot. I will say, I think in the Hall of Fame of steals, Roger Staubach after the Navy, they just kind of they did like the San Antonio Spurs stash a European guy, like you stash the Navy
because
guy.
the Cowboys were ahead of the curve in everything, including scouting.
Yeah. And then, Brady obviously is the number one steal of all time. Purdy is right up there with them, that you get a guy so late and very early in his career. He helps you go win a Super Bowl because you have a really good roster built around him. I think the question for Purdy, though, moving forward will be, okay, now that they're paying you all this money and there's no Deebo Samuel in his prime, and, a lot of the defensive players are gone, and a lot of them would have been gone anyway because it was just their time age-wise. Can the 49ers draft that well around him?
John Lynch and company have got to
see.
figure
take
that
advantage of having Fred Warner for a few more years because I don't think you want to waste that time. I mean, I know they've been flirting with it all, but good day for Brock Purdy. I saw Rocco Beck celebrating that. Hopes to be the next guy to do that from Iowa State, right? So, that's cool for them. Good for him.
All right. When we come back, remember the SEC commissioner, Roy Kramer, who's the one that basically came up with conference championship idea. His thoughts about where the SEC is and college football is, a couple of quotes from an article about him today, and the athletics department at A&M and where they are compared to everybody else in their conference when it comes to how much they paid for players, for coaches who are no longer a part of their athletic department. That and more, and this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. Dr. Rob Maxey is one of the partners there. Beautiful place to be. I've been in it a lot. I've visited there initially because they asked me to start to discuss their business about state-of-the-art imaging, how much it would cost, only $497 for an MRI, less than the average is $1,100, and in some places higher than that. So it's a great deal. And okay, so it's not very much. So what about the images? State of the art. I've seen them. I have been given a disc, a CD, every time I've walked out the door with the images to take to the doctor's office, and they will upload those. Someone at the doctor's office can also have them available in the portal. I've had my neck. I've had my lower back a couple of different times. I've had many things with an image because the doctor said I needed to get it. One of the cases was in my abdomen to make sure there was nothing going on. Remember, I went through a year ago a prostate removal surgery, and they wanted to make sure there was nothing else that they found. And it could have been lit up like a Christmas tree, but I wasn't. But that was nice, and I got that done too. So it's not just broken bones, or maybe torn ligaments and muscles. It could be something else. Inside the Central Texas Marketplace off I-35, worth the drive at IdealMRI.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund. BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
365 Sports and so much. We even brought up this week, Ross Dellinger was on with us, among others, on the SEC and trying to get to the 16-team playoff. And when they do that, will they have the conference championship game? 1 and 2 are automatically in, according to the SEC. And then 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Roy Kramer is the commissioner of the SEC. They are the ones that invented, basically, the conference championship game. And this was a quote from him when he's heard and watched and read about the SEC looking at, will they even dissolve that? Which they won't because of money. But why would you get rid of it anyway? But eliminating the SEC title game would cheapen the regular season, like what happened in basketball. It's still a special game that elevates the conference. I'd hate to see it go. 95 years old and still a little bit feisty on something that he helped invent. And I've never really heard them say they're going to get rid of the game, but perhaps the way they decide on who plays in the game.
Yeah, it's not going to be decided with the top 2 teams playing each other. It'll be not even involving the champion, really. The regular, here's the problem I have with this whole play-in tournament thing. You got these big-ass conferences, right? There's differences in schedules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a team can just slide through on an easy schedule and be pretty good, but not nearly as good as really who the top 2 teams are. But those 2 had tougher schedules. And because you had an easier schedule, because you miss out on playing 3 of the better teams, because that's just the draw that you got, you have an easier path to the championship game. And I know that's just how sometimes things work, and you just get the draw that you get. But that is definitely a downside to me of the bigger conferences and potentially these play-in games, mini tournaments, however you want to call them. Because I think that the problem with it is that, for example, like the Big 12, okay, let's say you have 2 automatic bids, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm saying I know I've talked back and forth on fighting all that. I think you got to accept the 2 auto bids and just roll with it, and then just be better and go earn 3 and 4. I think the alternative is you're getting 1.
Yeah.
And so I think you need to take the 2 auto bids and then argue about that however you need to, but don't ignore the gift horse in the mouth, right? So I'm kind of on that side of the fence as the days have gone by of don't just take 2 and like it, but take 2 and do what you can with it, as opposed to risking you not having even 2.
Well, here's the thing I've been thinking about is if you take 2, let's say they do take 2, and then the thing sucks, right? They will respond to the viewership and all that if you do have too many of the teams that get 4 that are, not good. So if you get, 2 Big Ten teams a couple years in a row that just get in and get blown out and the games are terrible, or the SEC takes a step back or whatever happens, then maybe you can go back to the table eventually. And there's another reshuffle coming, as we know. So this next playoff thing is probably moot in 2031 as it stands anyway, with all the TV deal coming up. So if you need to protect yourself for a while, do it. But I would push it right to the line. I would do everything until actually calling their bluff to see if they're bluffing.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the more I think about it, but I was I got a little sidetracked with that part of it. But, yeah, I just think that you have these different schedules, and the way that it works out, I mean, you could have a team just basically cakewalk into a playoff spot and not even play for the conference championship necessarily and didn't play some of the best teams. I don't know that that's the most ideal way, and it wouldn't happen as much necessarily in the ones that have like the 4 protected, right? But yeah, I don't know. With only the 2, your first place team gets in if you're the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have 2 and 3 would play each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that one's really the regular season champion because they played an easier schedule and then didn't have to go play for the title? So it just feels like kind of a cheaper conference title potentially that doesn't feel nearly as earned as at least you play, you're playing the second best team or the best team.
Especially with the history in the Big 12. I mean, there's been half of the games have been upsets, right? I don't give up. I know I'm not trying to be stubborn. I'm not trying to be completely – I think you keep fighting you just fight. I'm not saying eventually you accept the 2, but I think you fight for more among the 16.
Well, we're talking about 2 topics here because one of them's the conference championship setup and me saying that I don't necessarily like how a team could just basically waltz in there with an easier schedule. And the other one is the Big 12 fight for playoff
algorithm could be
spots.
in your favor, yeah.
But here's the other thing, and we're going to see this more and more. Look, the Big 12 is kind of the test case, right, of this in that, every year we don't know what's going to happen. That's going to be the case in a lot of conferences over and over again, the more that rosters fluctuate. And so if rosters continue to fluctuate the way that they are, you could look at a schedule at the beginning of the year and think like, oh, man, look at what Georgia has in front of them, right? That's going to be when Georgia could be a really good team. That's going to be a whale of a schedule. They've got Texas and A&M and Florida and Bama all on the schedule. Tennessee had a great year last year. They've got them too. So in
other words, like the NFL?
Yeah, they can have that. And then like the NFL where all of a sudden like all those teams are 6-6. And you're like, well, that's weird that happened because that's how football works. So now
I don't even know if it's just the roster flux, Paul. I think it's because you have so many damn teams.
Exactly. So, yeah, and then you've got, or you have somebody like you could have a really mismatched one where somebody absolutely obliterates a dominant schedule, like a good schedule, and they're just elite. They've created they're a dynastic type team, which we'll see probably less and less. And then you have somebody that like, Mississippi State cakewalks into an easy schedule and they're there. And then you've got an SEC 1 and 2, and the 2 team hadn't played anybody. And then they get blown out in the playoffs.
Yeah, my thing with the conference title is I don't know if this was exactly the way that it was at the end of last year. I know where it ended up, but I can't find a way to just go week by week as far as the standings in the Big 12 went. So if I'm slightly off, I think you still get the point. But for example, last year, if you would have had Arizona just didn't play in the conference championship game and they're crowned the conference champions because they were first in the standings, right? So they make the college football playoff and they'd be declared the conference champion. But they wouldn't have played in the conference championship game because that's now the play-in game between BYU and Iowa State, which is fine. That'll be an exciting game, right? BYU, Iowa State would have been hellacious, and that would have been for a spot in the playoff, and that would have been really cool. But is Arizona State as deserving as opposed to when they had to beat Iowa State to win the Big 12? That's what I mean. It cheapens it because you just get it off the regular season, and if you got an easy regular season draw, then
I don't think you can not play in the championship game if you win the regular season.
But that's the point. If you're in the Big 12, it's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do you do it? You got 2. I guess you do the mini 4, but then what you risk is your 4th place team knocking out your 1st place team.
Yep.
So, do you want to do that? That's why I asked the question yesterday. How would the Big 12 do it? And y'all seem to think that and agreed that it would be your number 1 gets the bye, and they're in. So they would technically be your conference champion. I mean, because they're the best team in the league, right? Mm-hmm. The other 2 are playing for the 2nd spot. So they can't be your conference champion because they weren't the team that already got the bye. They're playing for that 2nd spot.
And a team that does not play in the championship game can get in if they're 3rd because number 2 or whoever gets thumped, right? If they were to keep it the way it is now.
Wait, what?
So if you play it the way it is now, which is the 1st and 2nd place based on however you want to do tiebreakers or whatever, could a 3rd place team that does not play in the conference championship game slip ahead of either the number 1 or 2 seed who play in the game? with the 2 automatic.
Well, I don't think that would be a concern of the Big 12s because
if for example, if you have a team that's 9-0 or 8-1, another one that's 8-1, and maybe or 7-2, and there's a tiebreaker, so one team plays in the game, the other one doesn't.
I think
and they get in because they didn't play.
No, I think that you'd have the first place team that's in regardless because they don't have to play in the championship game. If that's the way they did it, which I don't know how else you would do it, because you're going to have the 2 teams play each other and they're both in no matter what. Well, then the game doesn't matter as much,
except money.
And it would mean money, and it would mean you win the conference. Like you actually won the conference championship.
Though, couldn't it give you a higher seat if you win?
It could, but I just don't think if you're both automatically in, it would have as higher stakes. But that's going to be the case in the SEC and in the Big Ten because they're going to have all those teams in. So I guess it doesn't matter. Maybe you play your top 2 teams then.
Yeah,
but that's what I was trying to figure out.
Well,
I don't like
your mark in July.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Is I don't like the idea of, let's say Arizona State or whoever has an easier schedule. They finished first because they were maybe slightly better. They're your conference champion, and then you have Iowa State and BYU playing for a spot. Excuse me, a spot in the playoff. And I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to. Maybe there's other ways to do it that are better. Like your top 2 teams just play, and it's the real conference championship, and they both get in no matter what. I just think you leave a level of suspense out of that. Then
you wonder if they've already started. Talking, you have to be proactive on this.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like the play-in games, like I don't want to see them because I'm worried that most of them are going to suck. Or that they're going to cheapen the regular season or whatever. There's more negatives to them than positives to me, especially when you talk about if you're getting 4 automatic bids in the SEC, well, or in the Big Ten, well, 2 of those teams are going to be really good or already in there. But then when you get down to who are the 5th and 6th teams, there's no guarantee that those teams are going to be any fun to watch.
But if they go in there and they beat the 3rd and 4th teams and they go and the other one wins that next game, and they'd be kind of deserving to be in that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think that most years as it stands, you're going to probably have a situation where you have, let's just say Oregon, Ohio State are the top 2 and then run away with it. And then the next 4 are, a pretty good Michigan team, a good USC team, kind of a random good Purdue team, and
why don't
Wisconsin.
we just use the SEC from last year?
Yeah. So
Texas was the number 1 seed. Georgia, Tennessee were 2 and 3. Georgia won the tiebreaker, I believe. Then you had a clump of 7 teams at 5 and 3. And I'm sure tiebreakers would allow you to have, who would be the 4th, 5th, and 6th teams.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm making it way too complicated, but I just don't want to see somebody just skate by, not play in a conference title game, be declared the conference champions, and have not played 7 of the other teams in the league. I think at least bare minimum you can do to go and earn that is to go play the 2nd best team and figure out who it is, because at least that's all things are equal, and you're going to prove it one way or the other. Whereas if you just play your regular season and you finish a game ahead of 2 or 3 others, like you're in the playoff, you're the Big 12 champ, and they're going to go fight and play in the conference championship game to see who joins you in the playoff. Yeah. That feels like a little bit of a cheaper championship to me. Now, in the bigger leagues, maybe it's different. I don't know. But
well, in the Big 12, you had 4 teams that were 7 and 2 last year. That would have been a hellacious 4-team playoff of two games.
Well, then you could do 4 teams, and you could do your 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3. Yeah. But what you risk is your number 1 gets knocked out, and then they don't get in the playoff, even though that was maybe your best team. So I don't know. That's some of the stuff that's going to be interesting that they have to sort out and figure out. And I know there's already kind of basics in place, but I can see where it'd be super exciting. I can also see where it's just we're like do y'all remember how beat down everybody was by like January of last year?
Yeah.
Like all the bitching and moaning about college football in the month of January last year, especially that first weekend of the playoff. Like, my God, the complaining was out of control.
Because we sit there and I say we it's like we cannot just let something play itself out.
No, we can. The people who want to make money want to make more money as fast as they humanly possibly can. So that's why they're already expanding the playoff 1 year after 12. Those are the people to blame, not the people at home watching.
That's a done deal. They just skip right by 14. Right,
yeah, because there's more money to be had. So
all right. So the Southern Conference Commissioner, remember, kind of stood up and said, "Hey, we're not just going to let you get all the money, and we're going to also be breaking down equally, whether you're Troy or you're Ohio State, the amount of money that is being paid through the House settlement. Now, Big West Commissioner Dan Butterly says this. He did an interview with the Big Mountain podcast, and they shared it with me. They sent that to me on Twitter. The A4s are trying to change the structure of the NCAA governance and voting to overwhelmingly favor themselves. Butterly feels that it's on the conference commissioners to try and stop the A4, which is, of course, David against Goliath, from furthering consolidating power. The G6 probably are too scared to do anything because they could lose access to the college football playoff. But he is saying that they must at least show something, or whether they get trampled or not, it's the second smaller conference, G5 or 6 conference, that is now a commissioner spoken out against the separation or the advantages that are going to the A4. Is this the start of we're going to have another 2 or 3 conferences next week who speak out, whether it means anything or if it is like just a bug on a windshield?
I think it's a bug on a windshield, honestly. I mean, they got to do what they got to do. They got to fight for themselves, but I don't think the people in charge really care. And this is where the Big 12 and the ACC go from being, woe is us, and this isn't fair, and the other two are getting farther and farther ahead of us. And then what happens in this case? They're with those other guys that are too far ahead of them, they're trying to catch up with. Now they're on team SEC and ACC or Big 10 because they're in that group in this case. So when it's just them and the Power 2, no, this sucks. But now we're talking about him complaining about the A4. Well, the Big 12's not going to complain about that because they're in the A4.
Yeah, no.
So now they're fine now. They don't care about that.
That's what I've always thought about teams that are a part of the A4 that are 3 and 4. The ACC probably 3, the Big 12 4, and that could start somebody's chat fight. I don't care. But like, hey, no, you can't leave us behind, and yet those A4 conferences have left everyone else behind.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the ACC or the Big 12 are going to be worried about the Mountain West surviving, and I don't think, if it trickled down even further, the Mountain West would necessarily be worried about who their version of that would be. So, yeah, I mean, I think the small schools need to talk and be as loud as they can, because the two things we know it's actually going to possibly do any good for them, or even the non-power 2s when you climb up and they're not included in other stories, is politics and public pressure, and that's it. So the least you can do is try to up the public pressure and get enough people out enough to where the politicians maybe get their ear grabbed and they start to pay attention and they start to fight for you, and that's what you can do. I mean, but it's the 2 Ps. It's politics and public pressure, and they kind of go hand in hand. So that's the bare minimum that they can do. There's nothing they can do to pay their way in. There's nothing they're not going to go get massive TV ratings this season all of a sudden.
Nope.
So all you can do is try to ramp up the pressure and hopefully get some people who have some power that can, get other people's ears and help out your situation. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, the dumbest thing to do would be to stay silent. I think largely when those people talk, most people don't care because they're speaking from a position of being in more of the minority. So an Alabama fan's drowning that out, or even a Texas Tech fan probably. I don't know how worried they are, or anybody for that matter on that same level is. But you still got to keep fighting and keep talking until somebody does hear you, because the worst thing to do would be to just sit there, lie down, and take it. And, that would be surefire death.
Yeah, even you can be tough and you could be resistant and you could be fighting for what you want, but you could also end up dead rather than just maybe you get a little bit, but you're still alive. I don't know. That's the way. A couple in the chat room, a lot of people saying you got to just keep fighting. Whether or not you should or not, you got to keep on fighting.
I mean, I do think there comes a point where if you're sitting there and you're fighting, and you could probably just take your 2 playoff spots and you'd be in a better position than maybe you are right now. But it's out of a pool of 16 teams.
Yeah. No.
So there is that part of it. And you know damn well that your third team will have to be so damn good and scrappy and relevant to get even a sniff compared to the 6th place team in the Big 10. And that's just the reality of it. So, yeah, I think you got to keep fighting. And then, you know what, if Sankey and Petiti or whoever's in charge at that point decide to say, you know what, you guys fought back against our grand plan that clearly has been orchestrated for quite a while now. You guys fought back. You don't even get 2 automatic buys. Okay, well, let's bring the lawyers in. Cody Campbell, pick up your phone, pal. We gotta do some politicking and some lawyering here, because that doesn't seem like it's probably all the way above board. There's got to be be some other path you could take that maybe the SEC and Big Ten wouldn't want to take, like litigation over something like that. I don't know, but that's the dilemma. That's Brett Yormark and others. They're getting paid a lot of money to make those decisions.
They do. All right. You guys want to do Minnesota, Garrett?
We could do that, or we got the severance pay.
Let's do the severance pay, and then we'll punt Minnesota. Much like Minnesota does a lot.
This will be Bracket Cat's favorite segment because it happens to be a part of the SEC, which he wants us to cover more. SEC Athletics Department. I bring this up because of that big damn middle finger on the left-hand side is the amount of money that Texas A&M's athletic department has paid out based on the fiscal year of 2024. And yes, Jimbo Fisher's about 80% of that. That's the money, the severance pay that is combined, not quite more than everybody else combined, but look at the difference in where they are and how much they've paid in severance pay compared to everybody else in the country. Texas is going to always be up there. They're not afraid. They have all the money in the world. Auburn, of course, has done it. They replace football coaches left and right.
But if you would like to know, when the eons passed and, 1,000 years from now, people ask, what was the dumbest coaching contract ever offered and signed? You'll say Texas A&M to Jimbo Fisher, who gave him no buyout and let Jimmy Sexton just rake them over the coals.
They were so desperate to win. And they got a guy who had won a national title, hell of a coach. They were so desperate to win, they basically just blew 5 years of their athletic department.
Yeah.
And they have all the money, they can replace it. Now, there was another story earlier this week that their donor club, whatever you call it, the sixth man or whatever foundation, 12-man foundation.
The sixth man?
Half the money. This 12-man foundation, the dollars, revenue, contributions is way down.
There's $25 million. This amount, surprisingly enough, it's down. And Craig and I talked about this on Wednesday. Smokey, who is paid more for less in one sport than A&M?
I can't imagine anyone.
Nobody else.
Yeah.
Especially like the chart.
Auburn would be in that discussion.
But look where Auburn is on this chart.
I mean, until Sark hit, maybe Texas would have been in that conversation.
But look where they are in this chart. They would still technically probably be paying Tom Herman's buyout.
Yeah.
It's only been 4 years. I don't know, maybe they're over that, but it's still like this is no one. And and they would have been on top of this even if Jimbo's contract was normal. They would have been on top of this because it's just what they do. Like that is so much money. And I think some of them, especially with all the things is they've been giving a bunch of money for a long time. And now they've asked to give them more to cover the players. We had to give all this money to pay a coach who did nothing, made us angry. And then we fired him. So yeah, maybe don't call until you figure out a way to do something without me.
I don't think there's any doubt, with all due respect to Mike Elko. That's why they didn't go for the big mega name either, even though he's a really good football coach.
And look, that probably saved them from themselves a little bit.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's all Jimbo. I mean, that's what that is. So that didn't stop some Aggie fans from getting real butthurt in the comments I saw when Shahan posted that, though, of like, what? Like, that was some secret that Jimbo was making money? It's like, no, it's just look how ridiculous that looks on this chart. Like, we all know how ridiculous the contract was. We all know how terrible and how much the ending flamed out and how much he didn't come anywhere close to living up to the amount of money. But damn, look at how bad that contract is. I mean, just there in front of your face how bad that contract is. So, yeah, that's all Jimbo. They're not going to close down the athletic department anytime soon or anything like that. But, man, what an awful contract and what an awful hire that turned out to be for them. And they're still getting made fun of for it, like on this chart. Yep. And you can see where they'd be a little bit sensitive to that. But it's the bed that you made. I mean, it's the contract they decided to give out. And you knew it was going to go one of a couple ways. He was either going to find some Florida State level success like he'd hoped for, or he was going to probably flame out in incredible fashion, and it was the latter for sure.
Quick update, and then we take a break for the top five with Paul and the poll results. Jonathan Vegas, who played at UT, by the way, leads the PGA Championship. Couple shots ahead of Matthew Pavone. Matt Fitzpatrick and Si Woo Kim are at 6 under. Max Homa went 64 today. He's at 5 under, and so is a guy named Scotty Scheffler, who is still on the course with a couple of holes to play. Rory is right now in for the weekend, but there's a lot of big names that missed the cut.
And would you like to know which one of us is going to win the PGA Championship?
Well, let me look at my team. Not mine.
Not mine. Not Rob's. And
oh my dear
and
God,
not Emery.
So all of us are done.
We're all done.
Just
Emery,
like we were for the Open Championship.
Yeah. Emery has maybe the best team, but
well, no, because Reed's gone.
They all suck since I left doing that game.
Yeah.
Can't even all
so
make it to the
all
weekend.
4 of us, and it's the hardest golf pick'em lottery in America.
Hey, Smokey, I have another one, as you know, that I do with my friends, and it's equally a bloodbath in that one.
It should be. We want everyone to be paying.
It was an absolute wood
well, I mean, because not a lot of the big names. Jimmy Walker, by the way, former Baylor player, was under the cut line, and he bogeyed the last 5 holes to miss the cut. The top 5 with Paul Catalina, and then the poll results next.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for all of your automotive needs. Looking to get into a new vehicle, looking to get into a brand new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, either way, they can hook you up over at Richard Carr. And man, they have been there for me on multiple occasions over the last 3 or 4 years. Had a couple of different accidents over at Richard Carr, and haven't gone and bought a newer pre-owned car over there, but I can recommend their service department and the great job they do over there on working on like body damage, for example. But if you just want something as simple as an oil change, they can do that for you. They are a one-stop shop. New cars, pre-owned cars, work on your vehicle. They are there to not only deliver great prices and great customer service, but to give you the value of peace of mind, which, you know, if you've driven a rinky-dink car, something that's had issues, especially in the hot summer months, family travel months, you know how important and almost priceless that can be. So right now they're celebrating our nation with the red, white, and blue tax savings event, which means every new or used car and truck is priced with special American-sized savings, like getting nearly $9,000 in savings on all 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 SLE and SLT models in stock. And that's right, qualified buyers can save $8,750. You can also save $750 on a new 2025 Buick Envista, named the 2024 Car and Drivers Editor's Choice. Those are just a couple of the models that they have that you can check out right now. Pre-owned vehicles, as I mentioned as well, all of them have gone through a 172-point inspection, and 100% credit approval is always the goal. So there's just some of the offerings. There's a lot more you can explore on the website, in person, over there at the dealership, but they are locally owned, locally run, and celebrating 26 years of business here in Central Texas. So do business in Waco with a dealership that gives back to the community. Deal with people you can count on at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Use our promo code 365sports there, and please check out our new website, 365sportsdeals.com. They have all the sponsors and all their deals right there in one convenient place for you. Places quarterbacks go to flourish. Yesterday I was negative. I rained on everybody's parade and said mean negative things. I won't do that going into the weekend. I want you to have a beautiful and happy and positive weekend full of sunshine and laughter and rainbows. So we're going to say places QBs go to flourish. Number 5, the former San Diego, now LA Chargers. How about this QB succession? Breeze, Rivers, and now Justin Herbert. Now, yes, the jury is certainly still out on Justin Herbert, but I don't know, there's a little bit of a vacuum in there between Rivers and Justin Herbert, but this is the one that makes the list that hasn't won Super Bowls, but they've been pretty consistent. Breeze, an All-Pro and future Hall of Famer. Rivers, a Hall of Famer and All-Pro. And then Justin Herbert has been good, not great. We'll see what Jim Harbaugh can do for his career. Number 4, the New York Giants. I know you're saying, because they're walking in the desert right now, it's been bad. And yes, it has lately. But when you think about their history, they had Fran Tarkenton back in the day. They had Phil Simms, both Hall of Famers. They had Eli Manning. And also, this team has won 4 Super Bowls. 1 with Phil Simms as the starter, 2 with Eli Manning, and who won the other one? Garrett, do you know?
I do not.
That would be Jeff Hostetler. Again, a place QBs go to flourish. Can you tell me anything else about Jeff Hostetler's career other than he played for several more teams after that?
I cannot.
Exactly. But the Giants, at their peak, made him flourish. They have, especially compared to their crosstown neighbors, who have pretty much Joe Namath and nobody else. Sorry, Chad Pennington. But they, I say crosstown, they share the same stadium. They have been very good, and Eli Manning was not the most elite Manning. They won 2 Super Bowls with him. Number 3, my beloved Dallas Cowboys, the currently beleaguered Dallas Cowboys. But one thing you can't say about their quarterback history is that it's bad. Don Meredith, Roger Staubach, Danny White, former podcast co-host, maybe my favorite of the bunch just because of that. Then a couple of down years, then Troy Aikman in 3 Super Bowls. Then a couple of down years, then this guy, Tony Romo, undrafted to, near Ring of Honor level in the all-time leading passer in the history. And then from Tony Romo to Dak Prescott. And I understand that Dak Prescott is the lightning, strike of the league. Likes to throw at him. But here's the deal. He's better than any quarterback the Cleveland Browns have had in 50 years. So, what are we talking about here? If the worst player on this list is Tony Romo or Dak Prescott, that's still a pretty good list. So the Cowboys, for all the things that have happened since 1996, still kind of come up roses when it comes to the quarterback position. Which is why it's so maddening that you've had 2 quarterbacks who can win for you, and then you haven't built enough around them, although I'm not as big of a Romo-sexual as some of the other people in the world. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Mr. Irrelevant is their starting quarterback and got him to a Super Bowl. Colin Kaepernick got them to a Super Bowl. And let's not forget about Steve Young, Joe Montana, and even the great John Brody, who played for the 49ers. So, now granted, I'm not throwing Brock Purdy in that list with the Super Bowl winners, but 2 quarterbacks, Colin Kaepernick, who's not in the league right now, and Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, went there and flourished. Some teams are born under a good moon, I guess. Number 1, the Green Bay Packers. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and then this quarterback succession they have from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers and now to Jordan Love, who is just scratching the surface of his potential, is amazing. And Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer because of everything he did in Green Bay, not because of the last 2 years with the Jets or whatever is coming forth with the
Steelers or the next team on the moon or whatever he wants to do. I don't know. But craziness aside, and Brett Favre's, felonious activities, that is an amazing quarterback succession. They've had 3 guys that have won Super Bowls for them, and Jordan Love will see. But still, the Green Bay Packers know how to draft and develop quarterbacks. That's for sure. That's going to do it for us. I hope you have a great weekend. We're not done yet. Andrew Valade has worked very hard to compile our poll numbers, and if you don't see them before the weekend, you'll regret it for the rest of your life, or until you watch this back and find it then. One of those 2 things, nothing in between. That's it. Poll time. Smokey.
By the way, the PGA Championship, an update. Rory McIlroy was able to make the cut with a bogey on 18 after hitting the tee shot in the water. Scheffler's in a really good spot, so we'll see what happens. All right, the poll results from Andrew Valade. Of the top 4, who's the best college coach in 2025? And Kirby Smart overwhelmingly almost doubles everybody else combined with Ryan Day, Dabo Swinney, and Marcus Freeman. 108 votes, 26-37. Yeah, nearly doubles everybody else combined with that poll. Thank you very much for the votes.
I don't know that there's really a surprise that Kirby's the easy choice. I think if you had gone back 5 years, Dabo would probably be a tick higher and in more contention. And if you go back just a year ago, Ryan Day would not be the second highest vote getter. He would have been fourth.
You go back 5 years ago, Saban would be at the top of the list. Yeah.
Although I know his personality leaves a little bit of desired, but Ryan Day, as an effective football coach, is good against every team but Michigan.
Yeah.
He's
also in a job where it's beat them and win the natty, or it's nothing.
And so it's I don't think the people have ever been fair to how good of a coach Ryan Day is.
Yeah,
and this new system of playoff makes it better. I think it's better for coaches.
Well,
because
I
you
think
don't have to.
If you got all of the it, eventually you wear people down. By the way, that's the defending champions. Texas will open on the road against the 2 champions back to back. Michigan last year, which they won easily, and now Ohio State.
And the thing that's weird about college football was they'll be like a little 2% segment that will never change their mind about Ryan Day, who were kind of mad that he won the national championship for their team because they're message board booger pickers.
How
and
could
they
you
just
ever be
mad? They can't let it go. Yeah,
you can't enjoy a national
because
title.
I need to beat Michigan. That's all that I care about.
Yeah. All right. And then this one. Will you be tuning in to the WNBA season? Paul Catalina and 73%. No, still trying to name 5 teams.
I think I could name 5 teams.
I think I could, but I'd probably slip in one of the defunct ones.
Let's see.
Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah. Okay.
The LA Sparks.
The Dallas Wings.
The Dallas Wings. The Connecticut Sun. The Chicago Sun. Or the Connecticut Sun.
The Connecticut Sun, Chicago
We're doing
Sky.
pretty well.
State,
Indiana Fever, let's not forget the home of one Caitlin Clark. So, yeah. All right, but I'm telling you, am I tuning in? No. I know there's the Caitlin Clark and all. No,
15%.
That doesn't mean I won't watch 5 minutes before the end of the year.
Pull better ratings than spring football.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that for sure. I don't
know
spring football.
It will be interesting to see their numbers this year, with Caitlin Clark still a part of it, and a lot of the stars still a part of it. But what will the numbers be? Because they had such amazing surge last year.
They should be better in Dallas with Paige Beckers.
Oh, my God.
You talk about a city that was floundering there. And I know, like Coop said the other day, WNBA and NBA don't go hand in hand. The fan bases don't necessarily cross over. But I do think if you're just a hoops head in Dallas, Texas, and where you were post the Luka trade and all that to now where it's like you get to see what you look forward to. And it's if you do care about the women's game, you got Paige Beckers, who's a massive star. And then obviously Cooper Flagg, that news this week was massive for them. So, yeah, not bad compared to the feelings of the past few months.
Thank you, everybody that watches us, how you ever digest us every day, and on Twitter at 365 Sports YT, also on YouTube, 365 Sports. Thanks to Garrett Ross running the mothership and demanding excellence. We appreciate that from the top level. And, of course, King Jiu-Jitsu Andrew Valet with the polls, and God, he throws so much content out in places that I used to not know existed. And Emery Winter working on 365 Sports tonight. For Paul, Craig, I'm David Smoak. Thank you. And our sponsors, good night, 365 Sports.